pretty hot, huh?
And welcome back to Scoundrels, Inc. We're covering The Phantom Menace, Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, Episode 1, part of our Skywalker Saga series that we've been doing for the past few weeks. We just wrapped up the original trilogy last week, so you can check out all three of those discussions on the channel in the playlist. And guys, I think this is a pretty significant one, at least for myself and Brandon. I don't know about you, Kevin, but we'll get into that.
What's that? Is that a crack about my age?
Is it?
Wow. Hey, question real quick.
Yeah.
When you're going into grocery stores and the door automatically opens, do
Yeah.
you still, to this day, use the Force to open them?
Of course. Do you do the sound effect, though?
I do not do the sound effect.
I don't do the sound effect either because the doors usually actually has a pretty good sound effect.
Yeah,
itself,
exactly.
So,
Other than the scene in Attack of the Clones on Kamino when Obi-Wan does that, is there any other time where we see that in the movies?
In Revenge of the Sith, when he does it with the door, and then someone made a funny meme where he does it, and then it says "Nope" on the other side of it. On Padme's ship.
Yes.
oh damn, yeah, that's right.
It's a great meme to use, or GIF.
Sure.
I don't know.
Only money.
All right, so I actually, I kind of want to start this off with how did you first see it? Because I think this is really, because Brandon, you've talked about this is the first one you've seen in the theater.
Yes.
I remember seeing this one in the theater. I'm sure, Kevin, you do as well.
I saw it on the phone on the way here during traffic.
For the first time?
For the first time. So I'm all prepped.
Wow.
I feel like I missed some parts, but yeah.
That's the way that me and Rick intended people to watch it.
Brandon, so let's go ahead and hear your memories of watching this.
I should open with a statement of our man, Sean. He prepared a written statement.
Did he?
Yeah.
Everyone has written statement these days.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So,
I can never tell if these are real half the time.
No, this is a real written statement. It was sent to me via registered mail, so complete with the stamp and everything.
I believe it's actually written for real, but I don't know if he wrote it. But I guess we'll see.
No, he absolutely did. I would not put words into his mouth.
Because he put words into your mouth last week.
Did he? Oh, God. What was this? Oh, God, I'll have to see that.
It's not that bad. I forget. Anyways, go ahead. What did you say?
Well, now I wish I knew so that I could put some freaking words back into his mouth. Sean says, in objection to the crimes of Ben Quadraneros, I will be abstaining from this episode.
Dang. Okay. Strong words.
Powerful words.
Strong words.
What crimes did he do?
If only his power couplings were powerful.
If his crime was being adorable.
Yeah, exactly. He's the most adorable pod racer ever.
Where's he from, Sean? What planet was he from?
There. I think that's probably where it stems from.
Probably.
That's an old
That's
Schmodown.
the crime.
That's a Schmodown throwback reference.
Oh yeah, I'm cosplaying as Schmodown right now. Smasher when he won the
hoodie.
second belt, dude.
The second belt.
Anyways, this is my only Star Wars hoodie, shockingly.
Really? I only have one too, actually, and I've worn it on the show.
I have a good shirt where it's Vader pointing at Leia and it says, "Give me some space." I can't find it. I'm sure your wife every episode.
Your wife threw it out.
Yeah,
probably.
I think so.
Brandon.
Yes.
The first time you saw this movie.
Yes.
How was it?
It was pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good. That's it.
Has there ever been a little boy that has gone to see The Phantom Menace and not enjoyed it?
I don't know. Did you enjoy it? See, there you go.
Did. I
Who'd you see it with?
I have a vague memory of this. It's like because I was
You
a
guys
wee.
are so young.
I was a wee lad.
I was in college.
I actually went to go see this with a family friend, and we got a little Darth Maul action figure before the movie. I remember that.
I wonder if I got one.
Did you have ice cream before?
I don't know. It's probably after.
Yeah,
It's probably after. Ice cream before a movie?
During?
Maybe when you're an adult and you could do whatever you want, guy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was trying to figure out if I was going to take a sorority girl or not to the movie.
Oh my God!
I decided not
serious?
to.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, nah, I need to geek out. They can't know my true self.
The first time I saw this movie, I do remember it. It was at Fort City, AMC. I think it's Fort City 14. With my dad actually brought me. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, I think this is the only movie I ever went to the movie theater with my dad, and also a friend of mine that lived on my street. He came with.
I gotta play for you.
I remember sitting somewhat near the back on the left side of the middle section, and I just remember seeing Star Wars up on the on the screen and the music playing and the opening crawl, and I was just like, holy crap, this is actually happening. Very I remember it very clearly to this day. Kevin, what was her name?
Was it Sabe?
It was Ashley. But no, here's the thing. So, I was in college at San Diego State. But what my memory is, I mean, I have the memory of opening night, which is funny. Like, I remember the joke, the negotiations were short. I was literally the only person that laughed in the theater. And it was like that thing on Family Guy where the chicken's like, ha ha ha, or whatever. And he like gets the joke. So that was me because I like that joke. And but I remember when just to jump before that, the hoopla when the trailer came out.
Oh, sure.
I saw
it was a Matrix, right?
Meet Joe Black.
Oh, Meet Joe Black.
I saw Meet Joe Black. They played the trailer before and at the end, so they would try to get you to stay for the entirety of the movie, which I did.
Which a lot of confidence they had in that movie, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, I don't know, Meet Joe Black.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
Put it at the end.
I mean, brilliant, because our theater was packed, and then half the people left, like, in the middle of the movie. It was really funny.
Oh, my gosh.
But I remember there was a guy in my this is the time where I was, like, straight, like, jet black, spiky hair piercings in, like, college. And there was a guy named Crazy Phil who was like an older member of the fraternity. Whenever you're in a fraternity, you all live in a house with all the younger guys. But it's open to anybody who can come in, like an older guy, like anyone who's alumni can always come in. And I've never done that. I vowed never to be the guy to just come back and be like, hey, can I drink all your beer? But this one guy, Crazy Phil, and it was right when the episode 1 trailer released on QuickTime. Remember, it was like it was a special thing through QuickTime, and you got it on the StarWars.com.
Yeah.
I had dial up.
I remember watching the Batman Begins trailer, kind of like that. Like,
yeah. And so this is 1999, and we had a party at the fraternity house, and Crazy Phil showed up, and he's wandering around, and he saw it I just had it in my room. Before the festivities, and you have to understand, Crazy Phil is just this like crazy. He's really friendly, but just crazy, and always have a beer in his hand. Very friendly, but he was just kind of wacko. And he went in my room, and I remember he was like, "Can I just watch the trailer?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, go watch it. You go ahead, watch the trailer." So he plays the trailer, and then I go out to like party or whatever. And I'm not joking you, 90 minutes maybe later, maybe 2 hours later, I'm like, where's Crazy Phil? I haven't seen him the whole time. I go back in my room. He's sitting there watching it again. He literally watched it like on repeat like 500 times. So that I was just starting to crack a smile when you guys were talking about it, because I completely forgot about Crazy Phil until just now. But yeah, I remember seeing it at San Diego State at a movie theater in Fashion Valley, and my only other memory of it is we waited in line like all day long. So like we were the first ones in line, but it was before reserved seating. And the person who worked at the theater really blew it. So there was these long stairwells to go up to the theater. I know I'm supposed to talk more about Star Wars, but it's the event, people.
Yeah.
You're going up the stairs. And so we waited in line behind an usher. It was like, okay, wait. And then San Diego for you. Everybody just figured out, wait a second, we could just go. Why are we following this usher up this slow escalator? And so everybody started hopping the railings and just darting up the stairs. And I was like number 2 or 3. And I was just like, hey, guys, like, what are you doing?
Oh, my gosh.
And so I didn't get to sit 0,0 right in the middle. But we had great seats. And I remember TC-14. That was the only other memory from that night is I remember it got a big laugh when he's like, "Duh, send the Jedi," and you just hear the and like a quick, you hear like the servo move.
Yeah.
And that got a big laugh. And then I just remember freaking loving it.
Did you see it opening night?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Brandon, did you remember if you saw it opening night?
Probably not.
I know I did not. I saw it, I think like the following Tuesday or Wednesday, and let me tell you, that whole weekend it was just killing me, because
How did you do
this was
that?
The summer. Or spring, I guess.
Now, did you know Empire Strikes Back came out at this time?
Yes, I had seen all the films. Okay. Actually, at that point, I had like the Star Wars Insider Anniversary Edition for Empire Strikes Back, and I was still getting Insider at that time. But I remember having to wait for my dad to go take me to see it, and it was like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night after the weekend. So I didn't have like a huge crowd to deal with. I mean, there was still a packed theater, but it wasn't anything crazy that you saw like on news reports or anything like that, or people waiting around the corner. Nothing like that. But I do have an interesting, weird story surrounding that involves Episode 1. And I was at an Osco drugstore. This is back in Chicago, and inside there was basically like a life-size Darth Maul with like holding the double-bladed lightsaber, and it was like a display for like all the Pepsi and like all the other memorabilia or whatever. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing. And I remember, so I went back, when I was home, my friend that lived down the street from me that I went and saw the movie with, I was like, we gotta go, you gotta see this thing. Like, we'll ride our bikes over there. Now this store was closer to my dad's house, and I was down to my mom's house, which is like about 20 minutes apart. So riding our bikes was like a good like 35-minute bike ride. And we have to go over this hill and down the hill and everything.
I'm picturing the Goonies right now.
Kind of, a little bit.
Frank and the Goonies.
I'm riding at this time. I have like a Huffy mountain bike that's like too big for me, but I'm still able to ride it. My other friend, he has like a really cool bike, like a Dino. Remember Dino? I don't know if you ever had Dino bike. Like, anyways, a really cool looking bike, a little like
Dino bike.
And so
I was thinking it.
I beat you to it. I saw the twinkle of your eyes.
And so we ride our bikes to this Osco Jewel drugstore type of thing, kind of like a Walgreens basically. And so we didn't want to leave our bikes out there. So I was like, let me go in and see if it's still there. And so then I walk in, I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's awesome. So I go back out, I tell him, yeah, I'll hold your bike, I'll watch your bike. Go inside and just go take a look at it. And so he goes in, and I think he couldn't find it like the first time. And I was like, no, it's over, blah, 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 you know? And so the second time he goes back in, he's in there for much longer, because during this time, a group of older kids, I want to say at least in high school, maybe juniors or seniors, and at this point,
I'm older than you? Man, I am old.
And well, you know, people are different ages all the time, Kevin.
Is that how it works?
Yeah. And so I see like there's like 4 or 5 guys, and I'm like I said, I have a huge mountain bike that's not very appealing. And I'm holding my friend's really cool bike, and it's just me, and I'm like 13 years old. And these guys are at least 16, 17, 18, taller than me. And they're looking at me, and I'm like, they want this bike. Oh. Because like I'm in the part of this neighborhood where it's a little, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm like, oh man. I'm like, I don't know where my friend's at. He's better come out. And he's just like taking, because I think he's still looking, he couldn't find where it was at the second time around. And so I see them start to approach me, and I had seen something like on Oprah or whatever. Like if you're ever in danger and like draw attention to yourself, you don't say help, you say like fire. People like attention gets more drawn towards if you're yelling fire as opposed to help me, whatever.
Unless you're next to a lineup of soldiers and you're in front of them and you say fire, that would probably be a bad idea.
Yeah, that'd be a bad idea. So I start yelling fire, and like there's people walking in the parking lot that are going to the store that are looking at me like, what's going on? And even like the guys are getting like, whoa, what does he do? What is he talking about? Like fire? They must think I'm nuts. And so they actually kind of staved them off for a little bit. But then they were like, no, screw this. We're going to take this bike.
Oh, no.
They come over to me, and I'm holding onto my bike, and I'm holding on my friend's bike. And they go to grab the bike. I'm like, whoa, like, holy crap. Like, they're grabbing, I'm holding my bike, and I'm trying to hold on my friend's bike.
Please tell me the stand-up of Darth Maul shows up and saves the day.
I wish. This entire time, my friend is still inside. And I don't think he's looking at the Darth Maul
How
display.
big's your friend, by the way? Is he?
No, he's like...
What's that guy going to do? Both of you guys are just going to get your asses kicked.
Well, maybe, but it would have been nice to have
some backup.
He could have. I can't ride off with another bike. Like at least we could have maybe rode off on the bikes. So I was hoping he would come out in time so that we could just ride off, and that didn't happen. So I'm like struggling with this guy, and he goes to me because I'm not giving it up. You know, he's like, I got a gun, and then when he says that, I let go of the bike. I'm like, oh no. So then my friend comes out, right? I'm like, dude, a group of guys just stole your bike. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We're like pretty far from home. Yeah. Like we shouldn't really be over here, like as kids. And I'm afraid, you know, I'm scared and
your
upset.
bike,
I still have my bike, my stupid Huffy bike, mountain bike, whatever, that no one wants. They didn't want it. Like there's like 3 other guys. They could have took my bike too, but no, they wanted this Dino looking cool bike.
I love it.
And so I'm like, I told him, I was like, I'm gonna find your bike. I'm gonna find your bike. So. He stays there at like the Walgreens, and I ride my bike around the neighborhood.
They have a gun, I thought.
And no. Well,
look at this hero. Frank is like, I will find her. I will find you.
So I come across a squad car, a cop. I'm like, oh, dude. And by this time, I had actually found where they were at. They were at like some like community center, And
Wow.
I saw like the same group, and I'm like, okay, that's the group. And I was trying to figure out like where I was like looking for the bike, but as that was happening, I came across the squad car. There's 2 cops, and I'm like, they just stole my friend's bike. They're in this community center, and this is just the worst. This is like a really bad look. But they go. I'm 13. They go, okay, all right. Here's what you do. You go around the back. We'll go to the front, or they told me to go to the front, and we'll go to the back.
Cops said this?
Yes. And so I'm like, okay.
Where's my badge?
So
is the first thing I would say.
No, they were in an actual legit squad car. Like they were wearing their uniform. Like they were like, this wasn't like, oh yeah, we're cops.
They're
No, they were
sending you out to
actual
be
cops.
You're using her as bait.
Yeah, and so except I wasn't the bait. Except they didn't go to the back. They just left, and they had no time. And I was like, and so eventually I go down to the police station. What was like actually like another like half mile down the street. Call my parents.
Hey,
call
you
his
get your
parents.
hands off her.
You
You're
get
going
your
to
damn
get to the
hands
kids.
off her.
Hey, you get your damn hands off my friend's bike.
Oh yeah, it was a whole thing, and like
Oh, man.
file a police report and the stolen bike and everything. Yeah, my parents were pissed, and we couldn't hang out for like a couple weeks. And
Isn't
it
that
was,
funny though? How you can
know?
attach moments.
Yeah.
That was really loud. Sorry. Attach moments to that with like movies. I wasn't here for Return of the Jedi, but my main memory of Return of the Jedi, not to go too off topic, I spent the night at a theater. It was the only time I've ever done that with my buddy Tyler and a lot of people from high school. And I'll never forget. The name will be redacted, but this girl. So it was really cool theater. It was Big Newport. Have you ever heard of Big Newport? It was a really famous kind of movie theater, especially back in the like T2, Terminator 2 premieres and stuff like that. Like big theater. And they everybody who was spending the night for the movie, they let us go inside the movie and watch the last ever screening of A New Hope special edition because that was about to be moved out. Because remember, it was like every 2 weeks they had a new release. So we got to watch A New Hope at like...
It was every month.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, but we got to watch A New Hope at like the last thing at midnight. But then the other memory I have is a girl behind the thing. She's like, "Oh, I got nipple rings," and I was like, "You got nipple rings?" And she, without me asking to see it, she showed me. And
Whoa!
So I'm, I always
Scoundrel.
think of Return of the Jedi special edition. I think of when the girl from high school showed me her nipple rings. God bless that woman. But
So-
yeah, the little moments like that. you always
So
think of.
Brandon, have you ever seen nipple rings or ever been robbed because of Star Wars?
Yeah, do you have any?
No,
You're on deck now, bro. No pressure.
The only thing I could think about is that kid was probably like, I happened to acquire this bike in a game of chance. I hope you didn't kill anybody I know for it.
You didn't kill me, but
We keep going back in time, and I'll go back in time a little further. When I was on set for a movie called Calendar Girl, they always have a stand-in who was a kid. It was my stand-in was a little person. I forget the exact term. I don't want to like
dwarf.
Yeah. So the dwarf was my stand-in. So whenever I was in school for 3 hours,
It's funny because like my roommates, we recently looked up what's the
Yeah, I
proper
think I
term.
was there for
I think you
one-
might have been.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Rest in peace, Eric the Midget. I always loved him though, and he always was like, "Don't call me midget" on Howard Stern. But but my dwarf stand-in was telling me, he was like, "Oh, I was one of the Ewoks on Return of the Jedi," and I freaked out. Now this is back in like 1991. I think we shot it in 1991, and he told me, he was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm still part of the group of like we all like get together, like all the people that were Ewoks, but." We remember George saying, he's like, they're going to do a movie about when Darth Vader was a kid. And I was like, no way. Like that was the first, I didn't read about it in Fangora. I never knew about the quotes about how he always had prequels in mind. First time I heard about it was as a kid, hearing it from a dwarf that was an Ewok saying, dude, they're going to do one where Darth Vader is a kid. And I thought that was cool. But I wanted to ask before you get in the plot, I know this is going to be a long episode.
Yeah.
The build up to this movie too is very important to talk about because
it
of
is.
casting. With the casting announcements, there were so many rumors. I remember that Ray Liotta as Anakin Skywalker was a huge rumor.
Was the Leo one out there at that time or no?
Leo was for episode 2 for Anakin.
Oh, that's right.
The big rumors I remember was who's the guy who directed Thor? I'm retired.
Taika Waititi.
Kenneth Branagh, I think, was
Yeah.
in the running for a young Obi-Wan.
The first Thor.
Oh,
Yeah, the first Thor. Yeah.
I'm like,
Taika Waititi.
he's so synonymous with the franchise now. I'm like, anyways.
I feel like
I was like, yeah, that's not right.
but there were some young Matthew McConaughey. Like I remember, like because I was all like,
The dark side
looking
is
at-
all right, all right.
Exactly. But then I remember.
I'm sorry, it would have been perfect if he plays Anakin. I keep getting older, and they just stay the same.
Well, the Padawans don't get older
That's-
around him. Younglings don't.
Anakin,
boy.
I can't let you turn to the dark side. Be
But
a lot cooler if you
you
did.
So I was
amazing.
older, so I could remember these things that you little kids
yeah.
couldn't. But I remember when they first announced the cast, and I remember the photo they used for Natalie Portman. It's like this black and white photo with her hair like to the side with like the mole or whatever. And I was like, oh, like she looks like a little Leia. That's gonna be really cool. I remember I didn't know who Ewan McGregor was. I just kind of remember I knew him from Train Spotting, right? And then the announcement of then young Anakin with Jake Lloyd, who's the kid from.
Jingle all the way.
Jingle all the way. But I remember not the Newsweek, the Entertainment Weekly, I think. I had it, I was all into it. I have the Entertainment Weekly from the release week, but the build up, I don't know if you guys remember though, was so sky high huge that in fact that summer they hadn't raised prices in movie theaters for a while back then. And that was the summer they raised movie prices for the first time in years because they knew they can get away with it with the Phantom Menace.
Absolutely. I remember actually watching the trailer and seeing this little kid, and remember this. I'm just seeing this for the first time. I wasn't really reading up a whole lot on the leaks or whatever, like reporting whatever. So I see this just completely oblivious to anything else, any context really, and I'm like, I remember thinking like, wait, who's that little kid? That can't be Luke? Like, why would that be Luke? He's this wouldn't be. I distinctly remember having that memory, but I do remember all the promotional from like Taco Bell and stuff like that, the Pepsi cans.
Pepsi cans, I remember vividly.
I mean, many. I mean, the Taco Bell stuff is just the best. Was it Taco? Because they also did special edition stuff. I remember Taco Bell. There was remember for special edition, they had like a Death Star spinner thing. Yeah, it was like you press this button, it would spin, it would open up, and it was like a spark.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah,
and I had a Millennium Falcon one too.
Yeah. But they had this was like the golden age of promotional fast food chain products, food products, whatever. I mean, there's just everything you could put Star Wars on.
And I bought it.
Jurassic Park. It's Jurassic Park. Ian and Malcolm talking about you just put your logo on it and you're printing it and you're selling it. And
it's
selling
like
it.
in
It was
Spaceballs. Spaceballs, the fire extinguisher. Spaceballs, the boot. Spaceballs, the thermos. Spaceballs, the flame torch or whatever. So yeah,
I'll talk about some other stuff outside of the movies when we kind of get near the end or once we finish talking about the movie, because there's some other stuff in terms of figures and there was a specific PowerPoint I made that I'll get into.
What? Can you please put that on our website?
Dude, if I still had this PowerPoint, oh my God.
I want you to present it to us.
I wish, dude. But okay, so I think if you have any preamble to the movie, Brandon, anything else you remember?
The poster's cool.
Yeah,
the teaser poster with the shadow behind.
The Duel of Fates music video came out before the movie.
Oh, and you know what else came out before the movie was the soundtrack with the track Qui Gons Noble End. I remember driving home from San Diego for Thanksgiving. No, it was for Easter. So right before the movie, whenever it was, I had the soundtrack, and so I read the track. I didn't care about that. I was kind of annoyed, but I remember listening to it, just trying to find some hope in it. Maybe it means it's a noble end. First of all, I didn't know. I kind of knew Qui-Gon from the pictures, but I was like, well, they wouldn't do noble end. Maybe he's leaving the Order or whatever. And I remember driving up on the freeway and listening to Duel of the Fates the first time. And I remember the first time I heard it, I did not like it. And I was like, and Anakin's theme, I didn't like it as well. I was like, I can't hear a theme in here. I was expecting something a little more pronounced. And then it's funny. The second time I listened to it on the drive, it just snapped. And then the first time you hear the notes of Vader's theme at the end of Anakin's theme, that freaking blew my mind. I almost got an accent on the 5 North.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get into the movie then, because
there's a movie? I thought.
Yeah.
I want to say also, people talk about Qui-Gon's Noble End a lot, but I think there's also a track on there called Qui Gon's Funeral.
Oh, there is. There is. Wait.
Which really solidifies.
In case you didn't.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
So we open up with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan as ambassadors for the Chancellor, and they're on
the Chancellor's ambassadors.
They're into for negotiations, which were sure short.
They're pretty short.
Pretty short. But they
still kills me.
But they run into this particular droid called TC-14. Isn't that right, Brandon?
TC-14. I've heard of her. Sounds like a lady droid.
Didn't one of you send a GIF of TC-14 saying I'm here for the?
Oh, I that was me.
That was
Yeah,
you.
I
I'm gonna
did.
save it. That
Yeah, don't-
really made me laugh. Is that from a GIF or from you?
That's from me.
You are
just because of like the still
funny-
because the still that you sent in the group chat. I was like, this would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was really
Because
good.
it's TC-14 and the B1 battle droids, right?
You need to make a meme of that. And see if
I
it goes
don't.
viral.
It's really, really dirty, really raunchy. I won't even say it
It's
on
not
this
that
show.
raunchy. It's involving robots.
Yeah, it's
What is TC-14 serving them to drink in that scene? Do
What
we know?
idiots though? They're drinking like it could be poisonous. Would they?
I
Jedi
think they can
sense it?
sense deceptive. It was
Maybe.
deceptive. I think they could sense. I mean, they already
possibly.
sense there's something
They couldn't
trivial.
sense that Padme wasn't Padme.
Well,
Those idiots.
Well, there's actually I've seen a
wait. We got to tell this TC-14 story
Yeah.
first,
let's- Oh God,
Brandon.
Okay.
We'll get back
And
to
then
that.
we
We'll
get
get
into that.
We'll
Yeah,
get back.
because I remember I was over at your apartment, and I forget why. I think it was
Just hanging out.
hanging out, and
I don't know.
and you brought. I think you brought it up. Do you want to play Star Wars Trivial Pursuit? And I was like, Brandon, I will effing smoke you because I've been playing that version of the Star Wars Trivial Pursuit all my life. I
All
knew
my life.
I knew every card. I knew every answer. I knew like 99.9% of all of that.
So you were the smasher of Star Wars.
At that
Trivial
point in
Pursuit.
time, yes. And so and actually we were both like neck and neck
Yeah.
the entire time.
The entire game we both went perfect up
Yeah.
until the very end.
Oh no!
Yes.
And it's about this, isn't
And
it?
it's about TC-14. I forget
Yeah.
the exact question now. I should have.
Yeah.
I
I
should
don't remember the exact question either, but yeah, I believe that's the one question I got wrong was what's the name of the droid in the opening of
so
the
you
Phantom
always say
Menace.
Yeah, and that was what separated us. And
I love that story.
And
It's funny.
it's just I just every time I see TC-14, I think of Brandon now.
Yeah. And I think of Frank.
And I think of my victory first, but then I think of Brandon.
yeah, you think of crushing.
I think of Frank, then I think of my defeat.
I think maybe one of these days, one of these recordings, we should replay that match, Brandon.
Yeah.
I'll be a host.
Yeah, yeah, you
Because
can-
we know if I played,
Right.
it could be another
Actually,
settle the
I-
score. Another settle the score.
Actually, I think I loaned that game to Kevin and it disappeared.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to buy it on Amazon again. I think I used the
man.
cards in training, and then they all got separated.
That's funny.
But I will get you another.
Okay, so we were
I believe I owe you a Harry Potter one.
Yes.
Oh my! What are you just stealing from him?
I was just dreading the day he was like gonna say, "Dude, I'm having a party tonight. Can you bring it by?" And I'd be like, yeah, hold on." And then I just don't show up to the party.
Well, I mean, my only friends that would want to play either of those games are right here. So, there's no party I can host. I'd be like, you guys want to play like Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit? I'm like, no.
No. Come on, Sabrina.
You can't name all the Deathly Hallows?
Oh my god, dude.
Okay. You were gonna say something when I cut you off.
Yeah, so I've seen this circle the interwebs many times. It's that moment in The Phantom Menace when Padme goes, I am Queen Amidala, and they're all like, what?
Yeah.
But like there's a shot that cuts to Obi-Wan and
they smirk.
Qui-Gon, and they kind of like Obi-Wan like smirks at Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon smirks back, and they give someone pointed out that they give each other a look like Qui-Gon just lost a bet or something. Like I told you she was the queen.
I love that. That's my new headcanon.
Like
When,
one of
when
them,
it comes up
you
on
know.
screen here, we'll have to
Yeah.
look at it.
Like one of them knew, you know.
So I like that.
I always looked at it as like maybe they were like, yeah, we should have sensed that, shouldn't we? We should have. It was. Yeah, it was right there, wasn't it?
And then cut to the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't sense that. This is not my best day. I hope I don't have to fight a Sith later.
I would
Right.
for
Not
the
on my
record,
A game.
Qui-Gon is like my favorite character of all time, but like the funniest video ever is just called Qui-Gon Jinn, the worst Jedi ever, and it's the Cantina theme, and it shows like behind the scenes footage where he like accidentally throws his lightsaber, but it shows the credits will do fine. No, they won't, and then it shows him get stabbed at the end, and it's just this.
no.
It's like
Wait,
a
you can get
30-second
healed
video.
from stabs?
Oh boy. Yeah, but like this sets up really what the state of the Jedi look like at this point in the galaxy. With, I mean, it's all very much more vibrant. They're all more, I guess, like a better word, athletic. I guess.
Yeah, like people say they're at like the height of their powers. I think they're like a little bit past their height.
Probably.
They're on the decline.
For sure.
They've reached a point where they're too comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, well, we don't have any real threats, like other than a couple of like disputes that we have to go settle.
Sith haven't been around for 1,000 years.
The Republic's doing fine. We got rid of like all those bad guys from the High Republic era.
We're dealing with trade disputes at this point.
All those plants, evil plants.
Oh man.
Yeah, Yariel Poof's just like sitting there, you know.
What do you say? How does he talk?
Hello, I talk like this.
Oh, so it's a group decision now?
Yeah. Oh, so it's a council now? It's not just the two of you?
So funny.
Oh man.
I am one of 12 members in the whole galaxy on the Jedi Council. Today it is my job to get the pizza. My parents, they're very proud.
So Kevin, I'm really interested in what you thought
Robot
about
chicken.
this whole opening sequence with the droids and Qui-Gon putting the saber in the door, melting it, and I mean, you're just seeing stuff with the lightsaber.
Two of my
Force.
Two of my favorite instances of Jedi. Like, first of all, like you never thought about that. Like if you stuck a lightsaber in how
I
it would
sure
like
as hell
start to
didn't.
melt something. Which is why it's like to survive a saber wound. Like I feel like it's like the power of the sun, like inside your
Sure.
skin, so it would boil your blood around you anyway, and all your
palm of
blood
my
would
hands.
fly. It would fly out of your eyeballs.
Isn't there some like I don't know if it's canon or legends at this point now, like the way that Obi-Wan in A New Hope slices the arm as opposed to like there's a way to like intentionally.
so it doesn't like
Like,
stick around?
yeah.
Because if you get stabbed,
I thought
just
I
feel
heard
like
something like that before. I'm not sure that's.
I feel like you instantly get boiled. But like, yeah, so the stabbing will like blew me away, and then also like the force speed, which you never see again,
Right,
unfortunately. But like just the shot where they first do this panning shot where they're like twirling and fighting together as the Jedi, you're like, oh my god, look, goosebumps, dude, goosebumps. Jedi in their heyday blew me away, and I constantly rip that off in the KOTOR movies because I just love that like adventure and like it was like you hear about it, you heard about it for 20 some odd years, and then to see them in the prime. And I like that George Lucas, when we talk about Revenge of the Sith in a couple weeks, revisited that style with Obi-Wan and Anakin in the opening of Revenge of the Sith. I thought that was actually quite deliberate, because that one of my favorite moments, that first 25 minutes, again goosebumps, first 25 minutes.
I can see them.
I know, man.
I'm like Spider-Man, dude. Like in the
if I could read Braille, I'd read something on your arm right now. You'd say goosebumps.
The opening, just the opening 25 minutes in that shared theater on opening night was just mind blowing. Everybody was just so blown away by that, and that it set the tone of like seeing the Jedi in their prime. They're not doing this. It was like there was a lot of the Luke choreography with Vader and Revenge. Return of the Jedi that got way more, more athletic and stuff, but this was just on another level, and it began with that, and just cutting through the troops, and then the destroyers, and they have shields, and they run away, and then the great, negotiations were short joke. So, it was. The opening night of that was like definitely when they call event movies, it was an event, and that scene set the tone, which I thought carried me through. I know a lot of people have their gripes with that movie, especially after it came out and everybody was disappointed and stuff, but that kept me going. I saw the movie 7 times in the theater.
That's awesome. I'm curious though, for anyone else who's listening or watching, what was their first experience, their theater experience, first time watching this movie? Because this really, relaunched the Star Wars franchise in a big, big way, and it was monumental. I know there's a lot of, Brandon and I are in the prequel kids, and I'm kind of like in the middle. Growing up, and I've talked about this before, how I've been in the sweet spot between having like 13, 12 years of my childhood, just original trilogy, and then the prequel trilogy. So I'm curious about everyone else's, if you leave comments down below, I'm really curious to see read about other people's experiences, because I think that's like one of the best things I find about Star Wars. And one of the reasons I like doing the show with you guys is because we can talk about all our experiences with Star Wars and how we watched, this movie or that movie or this show. Or
wait till you hear my line story from Attack of the Clones. No,
oh my god! No, I can't wait to talk about Attack of the Clones with you, because there's a.
Oh yeah.
Next week, tune in, folks, because this is great stuff.
But I also will say that I expect the first episode or our episode of The Force Awakens will also be very long in the preamble too, because it's just that time, that build up. And sometimes when something's away and then it comes back, it comes back in such a big way. And I think now that we have Star Wars TV and a wealth of things, I mean, as a kid, I would have loved it, right? But I kind of am glad that I did live in an era where we did have these long droughts, like between movies. Like back then, it was 3 years, I think.
It's 3 years for like the prequels, yeah.
And then, of course, 20 years, or whatever it is. So to live in that era where like you didn't know if it was ever coming back, and then even after Revenge of the Sith, again, we didn't know if it was ever coming back. And so
I really thought that was because I was like, well, you just told the whole story with Vader, you know.
And when you see when poor George Lucas would be like, dude, I won't do the impersonation, but he was just talking about how like, he put his heart out there or whatever, and like people were like crapping on it and stuff like that. He's like, why would I want to make any more? I remember there was a quote where he basically was like talking about the haters and stuff, and he's like, this is like art. Like, why would I want to do any more of this? So that's when I thought, oh man, after Revenge of the Sith would be done. But yeah, this was at the height at the beginning, and also it's kind of the feeling that we got in The Force Awakens when you didn't know what was going to happen in the next two. You're like, what is going to happen with? How is this kid gonna? And let's talk about that too. That was a big choice to make Anakin young. He really wanted to be that any kid can turn. Well, I guess I should go when we get to that. When you're going through the story, so.
Well, because then let's just talk about just Naboo overall with Amidala, the Gungans meeting Jar Jar. I think so. Like, I think we'll probably have different experiences than Kevin will in terms of how receptive or not receptive you were to Jar Jar. Because like as a kid, I was kind of like in the middle between Jar Jar. I wasn't like, oh, he's the funniest thing ever, but I also wasn't like that's the worst thing ever. And I know that was out there. Brandon, I guess we'll just go to you. I mean, Jar Jar. I mean, you do Jar Jar impersonations to this day.
Mr. Jar Jar Binks.
See, there you go.
Humble servant.
You must have loved him because you were like what, 6.5?
Oh, bomb bad, Kevin. That wasn't my best Jar Jar.
No.
It's okay. You saw. Stop it there. Hello, Daddy. I always thought he said Daddy. Hello, Daddy.
Oh my gosh. What if it wasn't? But yeah,
so you loved him, right?
Jar Jar? I mean, I wasn't like, oh, freaking, you're Jar Jar Binks. He's like right up there with Obi-Wan and Luke. I'm like, no, like I'm like, I don't know.
But he was like an all CG character.
Just
the first, of its kind.
just
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like young at like I wasn't at that point where I just like thought he was like the most hilarious thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like I was like a little older than that, but so like I think I was just at a point where I just like accepted it. I'm like, yeah, he's a character in this movie, and like I have no problem with him whatsoever. Like yeah, like he sticks his tongue in like the power couplings or whatever, and that's funny. My tongue is numb. He says it like 5 times. I rewatched this movie. I did my homework.
You did the homework.
He keeps saying it, especially with the subtitles on. You catch it. And like he just kept saying it over and over again. My tongue is numb. My tongue is numb.
Kevin, you say Jar Jar for the first time.
I like Jar Jar.
I didn't mind him. I know a lot of people were like, oh, George Lucas raped my childhood. And like they wanted, I get it. Like they wanted another Wookiee companion because like, Chewie was, unbeatable. And this was your new option. But he never bothered me. I mean, some of the jokes it could have gone without, like the stepping in the poo and stuff like that. But like, my only thing is I remember the first clip. Man, these are memories that I have. They released a clip on entertainmenttonight.com or entertainment whatever it was, because remember their promotion for this was huge, and the first clip was his line where he's like, "It's embarrassing. I mean, I should take you there. On second thought, no way, right?
No. I'm afraid I've been banished."
So I'm not joking. When I first saw that clip, I thought it was a parody. I thought it was a joke.
Oh, wow.
I was like, wait, what? Why is he sounding like this like, you know what I mean? Like this broken, weird language, like, and he's like, and then he sounded so silly, and I was like, that can't be it. It's got to be like an alien voice. And that someone like parried it, and I just got had. And I remember watching that clip. If they find us, they'll crush us, grind us into tiny pieces, and blast us into oblivion. Which I love the Obi-Wan, but like the it's embarrassing. Like I just remember thinking like, what? Like I wasn't like too thrilled on that. And then when I saw it in the context of the movie, it didn't bother me as much. Again, I had weird reactions to some of these. You telling first time we hear about Naboo, I thought Naboo was a weird name for a planet. Like, and I wasn't one of those. This is not me. I was never like a keyboard jockey, like complained on the internet. This is all interior stuff, right? In my mind, I was like Naboo, like what? I want Dagobah and Tatooine. It was like Naboo, what's Naboo, But like then again, now it's so
like the Naboo. Yeah. That was you and all your friends.
Yeah, and now it's so ingrained in me. But I remember these moments of first hearing it. So yeah.
Naboo, what's up? They don't have a defense system at all. They just let an invasion happen. They just let it happen to them. They have starships. They have weapons.
Yeah.
They just let it. They're like, oh, next thing you know,
like their communications aren't encrypted.
Like the droids literally walked right up to the queen, and they're like, "You're our prisoner now."
Yeah.
Why do they have such easy access to the queen?
Man. Man,
It's like as bad as Alderaan,
Why did they
right?
put up a
Alderaan
fight?
has no weapons. Like, so Leia
Why-
proudly says that's like, you shouldn't be telling people.
Why did the Queen's security let the droids in the door? Just lock the door.
They were like,
we know that they lock.
They're
We
like,
see it
sir,
later in the
we
movie.
have a warrant. They're like, oh, okay.
And they're fast doors too. I remember I
Oh,
got a
yeah.
laugh in the theater when that button is pressed and near the end, and then just boom like that. Got such a big laugh in our theater because we were like, "Whoa, dude, that is a freaking door!"
That's interesting. The stuff that you guys were laughing at.
Yeah, it was a
I'm
fun
just
crowd because
interesting.
everybody's like,
Yeah, for
excited
sure,
about
for
everything.
sure.
And my girl, my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time when she lived in Seattle, her garage door, I think it's to keep transients out or whatever, was fast like that.
Oh, I
And
remember you telling me.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my
yeah.
god, this is like insane. It's like a Star Wars door.
You
and I was
sent me
just so,
a video of it.
I did. I did. I'm like, look at this Star Wars door
I've
in
never
Seattle.
seen this door.
Yeah, I wonder. It's just. I think it's still in my messages somewhere.
Oh, you gotta
so.
show. You gotta
Yeah,
show
I'll
that
see if
again.
I can find
Please.
The more I think about it for this specific podcast, I'm just like, the deeper I go, the less it makes sense. But they just like let this invasion army just come in and just like
Hey.
take the Queen.
Yeah.
Well,
They have
they
guns.
they set that up in the crawl too, which I will say the crawl was really poorly
That's-
written.
I
They
think-
needed Brian
yeah.
De Palma on that one because like, the first line, the taxation of trade disputes is in dispute, and you're waiting 20 years. You know that's
and
why the opening
taxes.
Crawl,
We're talking about taxes.
Yeah, the opening crawl of The Force Awakens has the greatest fucking, excuse my language, the greatest opening line ever where it just says Luke Skywalker has vanished.
Oh, it's
right?
very
So
great. It's
epic,
very
such
great.
a tale. This one is the taxation of trade disputes. Trade
True.
routes is in dispute.
It's
Like,
true.
What?
The dead speak.
I mean, even that, like, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, the whole sequence then getting off of Naboo, you still you see again Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Well, I didn't like
in
Naboo that
action.
much. To,
The what?
like the Naboo.
Oh my gosh.
I'm back, guys.
He's
special
back.
special guest star Kevin Smith.
So yeah, they don't have a defense system
Yeah.
at all. I guess their ships are for show. Their guns are for show.
Yeah, they have this hangar, you're right, and like all these awesome.
And-
first of all, the N1 Starfighter is
Yeah.
one of my most favorite ships in all of Star
you
Wars.
must have geeked out on Mandalorian then when that pops back.
Oh,
in.
100%. Oh,
And it was a fun game too.
I have a quick story about when I went to the Lego store. I built my own N1. Like,
Did you ride it and with your bike? Did you
Just
go
like
to the
me.
Lego
No, I
store on your
didn't,
big
no.
bike
No,
with
I
your friend?
didn't. No. I went to the Lego store in downtown Chicago, and they had just like a pit of like Legos or whatever. I just was in there, and I built like an N1. I took a picture of it. It was like not like a true, like a
You
true,
build it out of that's what I'm giving
Yeah,
you props for. You build it without like you just did it with random things. Like,
yeah,
when
with
I had
random
those
things. I made it
Legos
look, like it was like a modified looking, you know.
that's dope, dude.
I did take a picture of it because I was so proud of this thing. I was like, I wish I could take this thing home. I remember even have like other kids around me being like, "Whoa, that's really cool." And I took like 3 or 4 pictures of it on on one of those instant wind up disposable cameras rather. And yeah, the N1 is just one of my most favorite ships, and I really want to get
good
that
ship.
as a model, especially Mando's N1.
You'd think a whole planet of people that design ships that good
Still on it. I love it.
could defend themselves.
can't get over it. He can't get over it.
Just like the Gungans have a grand army. They say we used to have grand army. They have a grand army, and Naboo, the entire planet. Like when we see the end of this movie, there's like what 20 people from Naboo fighting alongside
wanna
this
do a
grand
video.
army of the Gungans.
I want to do
for
a
an
video
entire
of you.
planet.
You are like if Star Wars had like not Fox News, it could be MSNBC, but you are like that guy that's like pounding the political like you would be on the air like on a news program like, what, we gotta change this. How do they have no security? How did they just let them roll
Imagine,
in?
I want to see the Nemoidians and the Trade Federation invade Mandalore and see how that goes.
It's like if
You
this
think they're gonna let them walk right in and take the dark saber?
it's like if this army was you seen the Truman Show, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
there's like a fire, and like, hey, put out this fire. It's like I'm an actor, I'm not an actual firefighter. They're like they built this army without the ever intent of having to ever use the army. It was just like, and then they're asked like, wait, we just did this for the looks.
I bet you
like,
the-
we're not trained, soldiers.
Here's a dark
fighters.
thought. What they don't understand is I think the Gungans had no clue. They could have gone surface and wiped out everybody on Naboo and taken over the planet, and then you
Oh my
have
God.
dark Gungans ruling
They
over.
could've.
Let's do an Elseworlds episode movie
Holy
where we talk about an
crap.
evil,
The
like a
Gungans
Naboo
take
taken
over.
over by evil, war-mongering. Let's
Yeah.
think about it. And like Avatar, you meet other species on the other side of the planet. There's got to be like evil Gungan tribes somewhere else on Naboo, and that would have they could have just taken over Theed and been like, "This is our planet."
What
now,
if
bitch."
that happened like a month before episode 1, and then they stopped the invasion from happening because they actually
Yeah,
Dang.
they'd be able to protect. Yeah, end of saga right there. It's like it's not even doesn't even make it to the crawl. Let's props to George too for design. I know I've talked about this before.
Doug Chang.
Yeah.
First of all,
Yeah.
hugely influential in,
Yeah.
in the prequels.
George could have gone, and I'm not complaining because I do love The Force Awakens. It's actually up there. I think it might be in my top 3. It hit me the right way. But I'm gonna give credit where credit is due. Because again, I'm bringing back to my like, oh, that doesn't look. I was expecting X-wings and TIE fighters because I was kind of such a casual fan, you know. I'm like, oh, it'll be back there. And when it was all different, and it was sleek, and I respected it because I was like, of course, it's like, you know, 30 years earlier or 60
Something
years?
like that.
Something like that.
30.
it's about 30-ish.
Yeah, about 30 years. And like 30 cars from 30 years ago, you know, or just like in Back to the Future, right? It's like a 30-year difference, right? And 85 to 55. The cars
Right.
look different than in 85. So, of course, the galaxy would look different. And so I really respect that his production design, his choices, he really did go out of his way to make it a total different looking Star Wars universe. Still lived in, especially when you go in Tatooine, because you don't want to lose that aspect of Star Wars because it is an old galaxy. But he did make those choices, and look what came out of it: the N1 Starfighter and other really cool designs, the droid ship, the droid Starfighter, and stuff like that, and the Trade Federation stuff. So props to the over. What do you guys think of that when you first saw the designs and stuff? Because I think we all were expecting there's going to be more TIE fighters and stormtroopers and.
No, I mean, like when you see the N1, I go, oh, that's like this version, X-Wing's version. That's the X-Wing version, right? And then you see the droid starfighters are like, oh, that's like the TIE fighter version. So like you can draw kind of like the little tiny parallels
Vulture droids.
to the.
Buzz
So you can
droids.
kind of like draw. At least I did as a kid. I was like, oh, maybe the N1's supposed to be the X-wing, and you know the droid starfighter is supposed to be the TIE. You know, that's how I looked at it as a kid, and I still think of it like that in terms of it rhyming. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it makes a lot of sense, especially like Phantom Menace, then One Starfighter. Like, that's something that is specific to Naboo, and it makes a lot of sense once the Empire takes over the galaxy. Obviously, Naboo falls under their jurisdiction. They're going to say, all right, like, nobody on Naboo is allowed to have these anymore. Like, we're going to take things over. We have our sweet TIE fighters. Man, they move, and it's going to be fine. So just throw those in a junkyard, maybe in Mos Eisley, maybe a Mandalorian stumbles across one after the war's over and, you know, modifies it for his little green friend, and then it's silver.
I think this movie is just going back. It's such a good, I love it. And it was the last Star Wars movie shot on film too.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I thought the lightsabers looked fantastic. And I thought the
they look
lightsabers in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith looked like crap. The lightsabers in Phantom Menace have almost a 3D feel to them. Like you can see and I know the new ones now, they're rotoscoping a lot better because they're actually having lit sabers on set with technology and stuff. But like the Phantom Menace sabers, I just thought had this like feel, like they felt
Like these
real.
were like green sticks with the hilt, right?
And
So-
it's like, and especially because I know how to build them in Photoshop or not Photoshop, in After Effects. And when I would learn to do it in like college and stuff like that, like the ones that I would make looked like the ones in the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Like that was how good I can do it when I was first learning it. I'm like, I can match that, but I couldn't ever figure out how to match.
I just think
the
there's a
Phantom Menace
certain
style.
look you end up getting from it being on film.
Yeah,
You know,
transfer to
it's
film.
it's just gonna have a different look and feel to it that you could try to even replicate digitally, but it's still not gonna
Yeah.
ever unless you shoot actually on film, which they did in Force Awakens, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I love the way those sabers look in the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I think, the sabers in The Force Awakens might be my favorite in the entire
They
saga.
kind of have that like
Yeah.
it's like that.
The
They're a little
and
yeah.
the,
The
and, the,
warbling.
and the
Yeah.
sound design, we've talked about this on this show before. Like the sound design is like intense. When Finn first ignites it, on Taco Bell,
it
it's
is.
It's bassy.
Yeah, it is very basic.
And you know,
and Attack of the Clones is like,
yeah, and I was always bummed that I never had those sound effects at my disposal for the KOTOR movies when I was doing them because like But my favorite, the second, I love that one. And then there's the sound effect in Return of the Jedi, since I missed it, when Luke he falls off his speeder and then he looks up and the speeder's coming, and when he ignites it, it's a special like like a really like that,
that
which is
good.
That was really
was that me or you?
Save that. Record that.
But like I use that ad nauseum in the KOTOR.
No,
movies,
it's a great sound effect.
Yeah.
So as we're escaping Naboo, though, we get introduced to R2. This is where R2, I guess, comes from, Naboo.
There's a lot of like cool moments like that I almost wish I was a little older to appreciate. Because it's like, hello, Obi-Wan, well, you keep your attention here in our belong. She's like, oh my god, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then it's like R2, like, is like, oh, that little droid did it. And it's like, his name is R2D2 your eyes. Like, what?
Yeah, I was never expecting to see R2D2 and C-3PO in this movie.
And then such a crowd reaction.
Yeah.
So much that we missed like the next couple of lines when R2 was released.
Someone going nuts.
And then C-3PO shows up being built by Anakin. You're like, all right, this is getting a bit much.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like that. I did not like the 3PO connection. You didn't need to do that.
But then Yoda shows up a little later, and you're like, yeah.
So then it's all forgiven with
It's a roller coaster.
Speaking of R2, and we'll talk about when I saw this when it was on the screen, and I was like, what? If I was Queen Amidala, I would have Sabe beheaded.
Oh my gosh.
Murder, killed.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Look, R2 just saves them. They get off the Naboo. They're on their way to Tatooine. And then for some reason, like your job is to die if someone attacks me and you be me. You know, Corday did her duty. That's your job, Sabe. Your job is not to then send me and go clean the droid like some handmaiden. Pick any of the other handmaidens in the scene. Pick any of them. But no, you send me, I would be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go clean R2D2, and I'm going to come back around.
Maybe
and when
that's
I'm back in the makeup again, I'm going to be like, all right, behead her.
Clearly, that threw off Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. They're like, there's no way.
I mean, they're really, she's really method acting right there. Method acting as far as being the queen. I wonder if they had a conversation later like, hey, okay, yeah, you don't have to make me clean the droid. Now I had to hang out with that Gungan who was bothering me the whole time. Like, come on.
Kevin, she wouldn't even have her army resist an invasion. Do you think that she's gonna punish Sabe for making her clean a droid? She's like the most pacifist like leader in the whole galaxy. She's like, oh, they're invading? Well, let them in.
Yeah, come on in.
I
feel like a drinking game every time he brings up
it.
it for the rest of the time. I'm gonna drink too.
She's like, I'm gonna clean the crap out of this droid. Sabe tells me what to do. I do it.
Yeah, man. Meanwhile, if I was king and my king decoy did, imagine Henry VIII has a freaking decoy, and then the decoy is like, Henry, I want you to go clean up the pig shit in the back pen behind the castle. Henry VIII would have that guy's head on a spike within hours.
Oh my god.
Have you seen how it should have ended for Attack of the Clones when Corday's like, oh, Senator, I am so sorry.
Oh, and he's like, no,
failed
you did your job.
She's like, no, this is exactly what you're supposed to do.
Great, I love it. How it should have ended perfectly. For Phantom Menace is funny too, where they're like always two there are, and then remember they have Maul is during the funeral prior for. Qui-Gon. Maul is like crawling. He's like, that's him right there. And like no one's paying attention to him. He's like, no, he really is my master. And then he dies.
God, that's funny.
Check it out on.
I mean, it's like it is like kind of like so obvious for us, but it's just like I feel like somebody like Padme kind of a little bit dumb too. Like I know she's only 14 years old and she's like charged with being the queen of an entire
planet. They can't all be like Rey, bro.
But literally like Palpatine's like, you should call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Vorum, and then they will elect a new chancellor, a strong chancellor. And then he's like, it was me. They elected me.
Also, how easy is it, by the way,
to
replace a leader? You just have one person say, I call for a vote of no confidence. That would be like when Trump was a president and one of the senators can be like, you know what? I'm the senator from California. I would like to call for a vote of no confidence for Trump. And then we'd have another election and it's done in like a weekend.
It is really.
How's that even possible?
It's literally in a day. They're like, oh yeah, it's between him and Bail Antilles of Alderaan, and it's him.
Yeah. How's that even possible? That planet's... Oh, wait, that's actually the galaxy. So, yeah, I was going to go back to your thing about how Naboo doesn't know what they're doing. But, how easy is it? So that... Why didn't anybody during Palpatine be like, hey, I vote for a vote of no confidence? Here comes the look. And I won the bet. Oh, okay. I think Obi-Wan knew and kept telling Qui-Gon. Sorry, it's on in the background.
We have it on, yeah. But then Palpatine's smart because he knows, like, all right, I already tricked Padme once.
Yep.
Can't do it again. Jar Jar. why don't you give me emergency powers?
Yeah.
He's like, "Woo, this seems like a good idea to me, Okie Day."
Yeah, he has everything, man.
Like sus.
You really need to be on a Star Wars News Network where you're just like on your rant.
Like I'm sorry, like if
like Bill Riley.
If Kevin,
the Bill Riley of Star Wars.
If me and
Bill
Kevin
O'Reilly.
were like gossiping and we're like, man, we really don't think Frank's doing a good job running this podcast. but then Kevin was like, Brandon, you should call for a vote of no confidence in Frank.
And then Kevin takes over the podcast.
But then Kevin leans into my ear and goes, "Now we will elect a new podcast host, a strong podcast host." I'd be like, "Dude, that's a little sus."
How did I not see that coming?
Oh my god.
I'd be like, "Oh, I take back my vote of no confidence. This guy's acting sus."
Poor Valorum.
Yeah, I mean, but before we talk more about Coruscant, let's talk about when we first get introduced to little Annie. Anakin's. First of all, I didn't expect his nickname to be Annie, and that he's a slave, Watto's shop, and he calls Padme an angel. And,
I remember my dad
like,
gave me the worst. Well, not the worst. He totally unintentionally told me something that like freaked me out for a while. So sometimes when you're a kid actor, you try out for things and you don't know what you're trying out for. It'll just be like, oh, I'm trying out for. You think you're trying out for something, and then you find out later it was like for something bigger. I think for RoboCop 3, I tried out for that. In the first audition, I didn't know they didn't say it was RoboCop 3. It was for something else. I was a kid actor, by the way. Newsflash. So my dad saw a behind the scenes special about Star Wars, and it was down to 3 kids. Jake Lloyd, some other kid, and a kid named Devin Michaels. And my stage name was Kevin Michaels, and my dad misheard it. And he was like, "Did you know you tried out for episode 1 and you didn't know?" And I was so depressed. I'm like, "Wait, I tried out and I didn't know it." And I was like, the age didn't really work out anyway. I was a little older. But then for like a year, I would tell people like, "Oh yeah, I tried out for episode 1," not knowing. And then I finally saw it, and I looked, and I told my dad, I'm like, "Dad, the kid's name was Devin Michaels with a D." And he was 8.
Could you imagine watching those like behind the scenes featurettes? Because there's one where they go through all the kids that were like in the running.
You just see an adult.
I just see. Yeah, because you said you were like in college.
Sir,
you see all these kids, and then you see like a 13-year, because it took a while to make the movie, but then you see like a 15-year-old like Kevin Smets, like, "Yeah, what's up, dude?
Are you an angel?"
Yeah. So,
Moons of Diego.
Speaking of Anakin,
you got any nipple rings under there?
Anakin, my friend. We call him Annie. Annie was a pimp, dude. Let me talk about Annie. His first line
Spitting
to
game,
a chick like twice his age. He says, "Are you
twice his age?
Whatever.
Like 5 years.
Whatever." He says, "Are you an angel?" And then he takes everybody to his pad, and the first thing he does, he's like, "Hey, Padme, let me show you my room." That kid knew what he was doing, dude.
Let's go back to
Anakin
my
pulled
place.
Padme from the very beginning.
You want to see my room? Yeah. This is my droid.
Oh, he's like, "Oh,
no
whoa.
big deal. This is my droid.
This is my droid. I'm kind of a protege."
There's a storm coming. You better hold up in my place."
He slips that old lady like a 20.
Yeah, he's like,
like
"Give
20,
me some pallies."
He slips her like 20 whoopee. He's like, hey,
just say something about a storm.
Say there's a store coming. You better get home quick.
Yeah, dude.
Kitster's in the back with a fan blowing up sand.
Then he walks later on Coruscant. He walks straight. You imagine like you're in Britain and you go right to the castle as a little boy, and you're like, "Hey, I want to see the Queen real quick and tell her what's up. I'm going to start my Jedi training." He goes straight to like the the decoy, and he's like, or to one of the handmaidens is like, "Hey, I want to see Padme real quick." Like, just again, no security even on Coruscant. How do you walk all the way that close to the Queen?
The kid walks right up to the Queen.
Right up to the Queen. But Anakin Skywalker was a pimp.
Have you seen? I think it's another like robot chicken, and where he's like, "Are you an angel? Are you an elephant?" He's just like asking tough stuff like that. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, "This is the kid that I end up with."
Let's talk about the actor too. Poor Jake Lloyd. If you know anything about what happened after. And I remember, to relate a little bit, when I was a kid actor, I never really hit it big or anything like that. But I did get on a couple movies that when I would be in high school, it would air on like, I was on a movie called Calendar Girl. I was in a movie called Newsies. And when it would go on whenever it was on HBO, and back then, it was before streaming and stuff, it would just be in the rotation and playing constantly. And I remember like whenever a movie would come out, because especially when I was younger, all the older kids would make fun of me like, "Oh, look at little Hollywood over here," and stuff like that. And so with Jake Lloyd,
Brandon,
that's
we're gonna call Kevin Little Hollywood from now on.
a little Hollywood.
Hollywood,
But
little Hollywood. It is you.
but I remember
Podcast.
I remember like, oh, hey, what's up, calendar boy? Like they call me calendar
wow.
boy. Like even like it was kind of mean. Like, and now that's just for me, which there's little bit parts in these movies that weren't even big. Imagine, he said in interviews like he was just relentlessly called Darth Vader, Little Vader, like made fun of and stuff like that. And he actually it screwed up his life. He never acted again. Look at his IMDb.
Yeah.
And then he you see his mugshot, which is like, hey, he would have been a good bad guy Anakin. You see the mugshot with like his black eye and stuff like that. Like he went on a high speed chase, dude. Anakin turned bad in real life. Poor Jake Lloyd.
Yeah.
And you read interviews with him, and it's like he seemed like such a dear kid, and he just. It was the bullying that like sent him over the edge. So I really do wish him well, and I hope that he's doing well. And I think that he did as good as he could. I mean, that's a scary thing as a kid actor. I tell you what, when I was in a soap opera, and if I watch that back now, like it's on YouTube, you can try to find it. You'll never find it, but. It was like I saw my acting was horrible. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard when you're a really small kid and he was given. Now there's so many talented actors
and
now.
George isn't exactly, I think, like an actor's director.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like Steven Spielberg.
He couldn't even like he made Natalie Portman look acting wouldn't too.
She's pretty rough in this. I'm watching it back.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah,
props to Jake Lloyd. I hope he's good wherever he is. And I mean that is a massive undertaking. And it sucks that I tried out and I didn't get the part. Again, the panning shot kills me. A bunch of kids and then 14-year-old me like, what's up?
Natalie Portman looks bored to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, she's constantly thinking about her people dying. How's she supposed to look, Brandon?
I got a story for you after we go off the air. I can't tell it on the air. It's an inside
that one
scoop.
line when they're having dinner at Anakin's house and she's like, "Oh, they gotta have some kind of a weakness or whatever." It was like, it's rough.
They always bet
It reminded me of Rey's delivery of the line that she talks to Luke in The Last Jedi, where she's like, "The Jedi need your help."
Yes,
blah, blah, blah. It's
I
like,
don't-
what line? Where did that come from? How did you not have another alternate take as an editor?
That line really
You know
does
what I'm
stick
talking
out to me
about?
too. Yes.
How are you gonna bully a kid for being Darth Vader? Though?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, listen, I get it,
Vader,
and it was
Like-
I used to never tell people, and I started lying and never tell, especially when I would like disappear for like 2 weeks. I would just say I was sick. I wouldn't tell them that I was doing stuff because I didn't want. And that kids are just cruel and mean, and like on the 10th level, like that's got to be so brutal on that
real.
kid.
Man.
yeah. Unfortunately, we know like the toxic side of the fandom, so I do like see like fans being mean to him for like saying like, "Oh, you did a terrible job." Which is just
Think about
it's
Hayden
also
Christensen,
crazy.
right? If you go, I like Kevin Smith and I respect his movies, but you see Clerks too. If you're Hayden Christensen and you go to see that with your friends and you're excited, and they have a scene where it's like, "Hi, I'm Anakin Skywalker. I'm single-handedly ruining Saga," like making fun of Hayden Christensen, like he got, it was a tough. Like I think that even short of Leonardo DiCaprio coming in there and probably pushing his weight around to say, "I'm not going to say that sand line,"
I don't think it's any secret that George doesn't write the best dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean, just like take it from Carrie Fisher's mouth, which she says about George's writing, and luckily for her and her talent, she could, she would give notes and whatnot, and she had that kind of status where she could do that, but she wasn't on the prequels, right? And for better or worse, George did everything he wanted to do.
He was surrounded by yes men. It was the worst thing.
I mean, these were independent films at the end of the day.
Sure, absolutely.
Like George was funding it with his own money, 100%.
Yeah.
And he's George Lucas. What are you gonna tell him?
Exactly.
Like he's like, yeah. So
I mean, and rightfully so, he is so revered, in terms of innovation and what he's done for the film industry as a whole at this point in his career when he's about to make the prequels. So yeah, you're gonna have a lot of people just deferring just because of his resume and what he's meant to the industry.
Yep.
So yeah, it's gonna be hard to be like, hey, I don't. But that's because at the same time, the spectacle of this movie is so overwhelming to begin with. You're just in awe that first of all, A, you're making Star Wars, and B, you're seeing this genius at work. And I think probably the last thing they're thinking about was the dialogue, So
yeah, there's like nobody to tell George Lucas no, and like from what I've seen from him, like he seems like one of the sweetest guys in the whole world.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like with anyone, if there's no one to tell you no, like nobody's like a perfect artist, you know?
Yeah.
Like we're like anything that we make, even if you're like really an amazing painter, like
Your
like,
TikToks are pretty perfect, bro.
Thank you. They're not, but thank you.
you know.
But my point is like even like 20th Century Fox distributing the movie, like they're not gonna tell him no. Like be like, oh George, we don't
They're
like
not
this.
going to say no to a cash cow
be
like
like,
that.
all right, well then I'm not releasing Star Wars.
Yeah.
Be like, oh shit, okay.
Oh my God, we have so like I'm just in my head. I'm like recounting like, oh, we still have the pod race to talk about. We still
Well, yeah,
have
let's talk about the pod race because.
Yeah, we didn't even think more about Tatooine. Oh, well, the mother, Shmi Skywalker.
Oh, yeah, let's talk
I had
about,
a
like-
big time crush on her in
was-
college,
there
dude.
was
I was
a
like,
thought.
Shmi
Let's talk
is
about-
hot. I want to be Anakin's stepdad.
Yeah, let's talk about the midi-chlorian stuff coming into play and
Oh, yeah.
him, Qui-Gon, testing his blood and all
yeah.
that, and Shmi talking about there was no father. I mean, Kevin, you hear all this because, what is your audience? What's the audience like then?
Yeah, the midi-chlorians was no one like that back then when it first came out, because when we were growing up and you see that scene with Yoda talking about the Force and Empire and it's like so mystical and stuff, like
it takes away the mysticism.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think that Sean did a great job for headcanon being like, well, like the midi-chlorians could exist, and because you could still have that mysticism about how they're just like the whatever he said a couple weeks ago on the show about the midi-chlorians. But no one liked the midi-chlorians, and they hated the name of it. It was just so like mitochondria, midi-chlorians.
Yeah.
And like, and it was just even awkwardly introduced. Like, there are so many different ways to if you're gonna do that. Like, the first time you hear about it, could like, when Anakin's like, I heard midi-chlorians. I was wondering, what are midi-chlorians? Like, it sounds like such like an after-school special where they're about to give you, so not a fan of that.
Yeah. I get kind of like the meaning behind, like the intention behind it.
It was just to show that Anakin was. They could have been like,
It was-
wow, his
it's-
force
it's-
powers
it's
are off the charts, even stronger than Yoda's.
Yeah, I think it was a case of kind of over explaining, unnecessary over explaining. But with that said, I don't really care about it. Midi-chlorians in the Star Wars Galaxy universe does not bother me.
Never mentioned again since Revenge of the Sith, right? In the
Right. Yeah.
It's mentioned in Revenge of the Sith.
and
but
that's it. And I think
can
that was
manipulate the
probably
midi-chlorians.
Mandalorian calls it the M count. but
Do
that's it.
they? Yes,
Yeah, they
that's
call it the M
right.
count.
Yeah.
Which is actually that's a pretty clever way to
Yeah.
to,
And it
to
is-
say midi-chlorians without saying.
By the way, and
midi-chlorians.
now though, here's the thing: like we hated it back then, but everything like back then so nostalgic that if we all hear the word midi-chlorian said in Mando season 3, we'll probably
flip
geek
out.
out
Yeah,
about it. We'll be like,
100%.
yeah, that's awesome. So
yeah, I don't have a problem with midi-chlorians. The way I have interpreted it, which is that like it's not what creates the Force. It is just a
vessel for the Force?
It's a microscopic life form that just attaches itself to people and things that are very strong in the Force. So like Anakin's like very strong in the Force, so he just has a lot of midi-chlorians naturally gravitating to him, like in his blood. That's the way that I see it. They're just wherever the Force is, there's midi-chlorians also.
but that makes it sound like they could be like you have more of the Force, so then my midi-chlorians would be like this. And like at a horror movie, like come out of my mouth, like in the Green Mile, and then go into your thing. That's terrifying.
I don't know if it's quite like that. I see it as like it's like a interesting like scientific way of them like they realize like, oh, people who are really strong in the Force happen to have a lot of midi-chlorians.
It's kind of like a genes, like, oh, you happen to have
So-
like the gene that predisposes you to whatever.
Yeah, so like that's a good
Green
way for
eyes,
us to know.
know.
Like, oh yeah,
like, I would have rather had the Force than colon cancer. I'll tell you that much. That would have been way more fun, dude.
Your colon cancer count's way high than your midi-chlorian count.
Oh, off the charts. It's even stronger than.
Oh boy,
so many horrible jokes.
Yeah, we don't need to
stop.
stop that road. Yeah.
But yeah, Master Yoda not as high as Anakin's midi-chlorians, which is fine.
But Shmi and the no father. I always thought
Yeah.
that she was lying
Silly.
at first. I thought that Shmi was lying.
She was like, there was no father, and she winked.
Yeah. I just thought like, oh, something happened, and especially when they show in the pickup scene, which by the way, when they are checking his blood,
Yeah.
Jake Lloyd's like 2 feet taller or whatever, or not 2 feet.
He had a
but
growth spurt.
He had a growth spurt,
Yeah.
so they had to sit him down and hide it.
You can kind of see when he gets up and walks off. You can kind of
didn't
see.
know
when
that.
If you it's in the documentary, the episode 1 documentary,
Do you think I've seen that?
a dozen times.
when they show Shmi. They show Shmi and she's looking like this, and he's like, "Yeah, either way, this is crazy, right?" When he's talking,
Yeah.
They show Shmi, and under the you hear the music, the
Yes.
you hear, and it's a lead in, obviously, because it's about to show Maul, but they show Shmi, and I'm like, she's freaking lying, dude. She knows something that we don't know, and the
Maul's the
Sith theme was
father.
leading it, and of course, obviously,
Yeah, I
not,
think I always thought she was trying to hide the identity of the father.
which is Snoke.
Good lord.
I'm back.
It's Kino Lloyd.
It's Kino Lloyd.
Kino Lloyd's the father. That's why he went to
could
jail.
be.
And that's why he lived on Tatooine. He can't swim.
I think he's probably at their age, right? What is he?
He's like, Tatooine has no rivers and lakes, right? Okay, I'm going there. He'd avoid Naboo for sure.
I thought it was funny watching this back how like Qui-Gon just like takes Anakin's blood and just like without even like saying like, hey, without even asking, he's just like, hey, one sec. All right. And like if I was Shmi, I'd be like, did you just take my kid's blood? Like we just met today.
She's a slave. She has no say in anything. Like,
and he lies to the kid. Oh, I'm testing your blood for infections.
You're like, why would I have an infection?
I think Anakin was definitely infected
with pimpness.
He had Padme fever.
Oh,
dude!
no.
10 years went by. 10 years, and then Attack of the Clones. He's like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. Oh my God, Padme!" Like, damn.
Like,
he lost it all
because he hanging out with Obi-Wan.
You're around a bunch of monks.
If he was still hanging out with Qui-Gon, dude, that dude would have so much game with Qui-Gon.
I'm telling you, Qui-Gon Jinn was the biggest pimp in the galaxy. He had girls in every system. He was like one of those sailors that had a woman in every port. I'm telling you, with those dude, I had a guy in college. That sounded bad. I knew a guy in college, and he had long hair, and I would always tell him, dude, you got. And one day he showed up, and he did his hair like Qui-Gon Jinn just for me. He was in film school. And I died. I'm like, dude, if I had that hair, I would grow it out, and I would do that same thing with like the thing. It's hard to explain, but Qui-Gon Jinn probably had. I mean, if he was around, he's the one banging Satine, dude, not Obi-Wan Kenobi. Satine's gonna be all into that older man.
Qui-Gon, I heard you mention STDs, and I was wondering, what are STDs?
Qui-Gon, I heard you mention you had chlamydia. I was wondering, what are chlamydia? A microscopic light force in your
good Lord,
in your lightsaber.
Oh my God, in your lightsaber. Oh no!
This is evergreen, right? It's gonna be forever. This video. Oh man, I'm gonna get if I can't run for office.
Yeah. But let's talk about the pod racing because that's like a whole like mini movie within the movie.
And to also sometimes if like it's easily skippable because you could skip it and just get right to the finish. But what I respect about that is there's no music until the very end of the final lap, and it's all sound. It is Ben. And if you watch the documentary too, George Lucas has input. Whenever you sit in with a director as an editor, like you get input. Or even when I'm dealing with the KOTOR animations, I'll be like, "Hey, can you do it?" And in the video, there's video of him in the control room with Ben Burt, and it's the footage of when Sebulba's coming right.
Yeah.
Right, coming up. Thank you. Right behind him, and it wasn't loud enough. And George is like, "No, when it gets really close, you want to really up the bass." And then he did it again, and I'm just like. Again, goosebumps.
Oh my God!
I'm a goosebump machine, dude.
You gotta get that looked at, man.
I really paid attention.
I might have a condition.
He's got goosebumpitis.
Qui-Gon.
Not even Master Yoda has this many goosebumps.
But yeah, the sound design was great. It goes on a little too long, to be honest. My wife loved the Phantom Menace. She actually liked Jar Jar, but got bored during the pod race because it's a spectacle. It's great for the fans. The first time in the theater was an event, but you kind of can get to the point in the extended version.
If I'm critiquing the movie, if I'm reviewing it as a movie, then I go, this is probably too long of a sequence. But as a Star Wars fan, I absolutely love it. I remember, when I got this movie back on VHS, that was like one of the first bits I fast forward to just to watch the race, and then when they later added in more of the other sequences that they cut out,
a little bit more of Lap 2, I think.
Yeah. And see more of Anakin like really
messing with that.
He gets a little bit messed up. He gets messed up.
Well, my favorite thing are the little moments too. Like, and I again, I hate to keep bringing up KOTOR, but I ripped off a lot of Phantom Menace because like that was really like a big inspiration for a lot of our episode 1. We have a pod race in it, but my favorite thing about which is not, incidentally, it's not in the game, pod race. We added one, but my favorite moments, which I emulated in the KOTOR thing, were stuff like when Jabba knocks the thing off the. Remember, it's like in the middle of the race, they'll just cut to Jabba and he just right, you just hear the thing, or like the shot of Aura Singh or the Udini and like random little things, or the guy in the pit race, like, come on, and it's like all no music, and it's just cutting to sound design and just cutting these little bit moments in between the big race parts. And I thought that was expertly done because you can't just have the race the whole time. You want to cut back and forth. Did he crash it? And all that stuff. Right. It was a very good blend of just funny little one-liners. And at the end, when Jabba was like asleep the whole time, it's just classic.
I think that's a great little gag or little bit there. I really, really love that this sequence. Yeah, it is too long for a movie. But it's Star Wars, man. It's all about being in the world.
Yeah.
And
who are we to talk of things running on too long? I think we're 2
right?
hours into this podcast already.
But one thing I noticed watching it again is there's a large chunk of the pod race. There's no score. It's only the sound of the pod race.
Yeah.
I never like thought about that before. Like watching it the other day, I was like, there is no music playing right now.
That's a choice. That's what I said in the beginning. I said they only have it until the very last lap, the very end when he's
and in general, I was telling Frank this the other day. Like I thought like the score for Phantom Menace is unique. Like I feel like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith kind of have like this like identity where it's like, okay, this is like the prequel music, and obviously we get Duel of the Fates and Phantom Menace and all of that, but it's like every track like is super memorable, and it like you like know exactly at what point in the movie it plays. I wasn't really noticing that all that much with Phantom Menace, especially when we first meet Anakin on Tatooine. There's music playing in the background where I was like, I'm not super familiar with this track. Like, if you play this for me outside of the movie, I don't know if I'd be able to tell you it was Star Wars.
So
that's why you lost to me and settled the score because it was a bunch of Phantom Menace questions.
There was so obviously when the movie came out, then like you had the soundtrack or the score on CD, right? It was like with Qui Gons Funeral,
and it was very incomplete, by the way.
Right, exactly. But then they did release.
It was Qui Gon's Fun, not Funeral. It wasn't finished yet. That's why
they did release another version of the score.
They did,
and it was a blue. Darth Maul's on the cover. It's a blue case, or at least the one I had was. And
you would even have like 34-second tracks of like just transitions.
It was literally the movie. With no dialogue, it was just all the music.
Yeah, it's great.
Just straight through. So
isn't there
I think it's called Ultimate Edition.
I think it is that. Yeah.
Isn't there a way to watch The Last Jedi?
Yes, you can
like
do that.
that.
Yeah, you can. But what I will say is,
I think so,
because that CD, I had that before the movie came out. So the only way I could replay the movie was listening to that. I listened to that score. I don't even know how many times.
When I'm driving.
And when I'm playing that score, I'm watching the movie in my mind, and I have the music.
I legit
which
do
is
that
just
in the
as iconic as the images you see on screen, right? So
that's what you did with Wedding Crashers too, right?
So when you're talking about, I don't really recognize this piece of music. Like, to me, I know that movie from the music.
I get it. I'm not the biggest fan in the room.
That's what I'm saying.
I get it.
I do think that the Anakin theme, which they reprise a little bit in Attack of the Clones and in Revenge of the Sith, I just remember the first time hearing it, it was hard to pin down, like, you know, with like Luke, like, you know, there's themes in it, right? Yoda, dun, 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 dun. With Anakin's theme, it's so intricate. It's a dun, na, 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 na. It, like, there's several parts to it that form the complete first, like, pronouncement of the theme. And again, I was struggling with that at first time too, where I didn't like recognize it, you know. And yeah, they don't have his theme play the first time he comes out. Like they start to do that a lot more. And also in Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, they're slowly getting closer to the original trilogy. So you start hearing more of those themes, and it starts blending them together. So yeah, it was a great score, but very unique in that sense too. But like, I like the hidden. You hear the Jabba's theme hidden in the fanfare music leading into, you know that. You got to know that.
Wait, say it again.
The flag parade track. Jabba's theme's in it. So like dun, 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 like that whole thing, and then all of a sudden you hear dun, 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 and it's underneath the pronouncement of the. I'll play it for you after the show.
I love that this movie has like so many like small connections to other movies and other characters and things in like the Star Wars universe. Like we were just talking about, why am I blanking on the other Jedi's name on Tatooine?
Oh, Quinlan Vos.
Quinlan Vos.
Oh yeah, Quinlan Vos. Yeah.
He's in one shot in this movie.
You know, Quinlan and Qui-Gon. And Quinlan was a pimp too, but that's why he didn't recognize he didn't talk to Qui-Gon on Tatooine.
They were on bro code. It was the bro code.
There's a bro code, and he was well, maybe like Quinlan was like, dude, I don't like that guy. That guy stole my chick on Nar Shaddaa.
But like, especially I noticed there's like a few connections to like Solo as Star Wars, or like we get Aura Singh, which is referenced in Solo.
Pretty much the fall, dude.
Killed by Tobias Beckett. We even have the character of Weasel, I believe his name is, played by Warwick Davis, who's he's sitting next to Watto at the race, and he's part of the resistance group led by Enfys Nest at the end.
You see Gardula, female Hutts do not.
And of course, obviously, there's a Darth Maul connection between the two movies.
There was a Bib Fortuna. You see,
that's a good segue if we're going to segue about Darth Maul. What did you guys think when you first saw him and he was all over? I mean, like you said, he was all over the Taco Bell things, and you saw the stand.
Dude, like Darth Maul, I was like, that's the devil, dude. George Lucas put the devil in Star Wars. That's what I thought.
He went very on the nose. Like, this is the bad guy. He's got black and red tattoos.
Even people who didn't like this movie when it came out, they went, "Yeah, Darth Maul's pretty bad."
Yeah, kind of the same thing with like when people didn't like Attack of the Clones. They're like, "Yeah, but the last 40 minutes were badass." With and the same thing. Like if people who didn't like Phantom Menace, they're like, "Yeah, but Maul." But that's the thing that they would have an argument too. They're like, "Yeah, the only good thing about Phantom Menace, he's killed at the end, right?" Because a lot of people thought
he's not.
I mean, imagine play it out with me. If Maul was not killed at the end of Phantom Menace, it was a stalemate. He killed Qui-Gon. Now you have Obi-Wan just fuming for 10 years, like, I want to get back this guy. And then imagine that duel in Attack of the Clones. If now Maul is the orchestrator instead of Count Dooku. I mean, everything could be totally different, but imagine that confrontation when you have the second. Because remember, in the original trilogy, you set up these duels, and there's like, this is not over. I'm gonna fight you again next.
This is Act 1 of our story.
And in this movie, the only real rematch we ever get is the duel with Dooku after episode 2. You have the one with 3. So I always think that it would have been, I mean, he did live, so we're happy, and I love his arc and everything in the Clone Wars and stuff, but
it turned out for the best, really.
But honestly, imagine if he did survive, and then he was the Darth Vader to Palpatine in this trilogy, and he made it all the way to like, and then that was the impetus which started Anakin's dark side turn, that he kills Maul.
Oh my gosh.
On that ship, like because Obi-Wan failed to do it. Like there's a lot there.
Yeah,
that's true.
Could have been cool, but I think like Dooku did end up being a really like interesting and important character. Like especially like just like the whole aspect of like the fallen Jedi and representing what was wrong with the Jedi and the Republic.
And he was right in the end. We talk about that in the Bad Batch, but like he, some people were like, yeah, he was right, because look at the world now. It sucks, But yeah, Maul was badass. The trailer too. Yeah. Let's talk about that trailer when the first time he does it with
it's iconic.
And then
again, an iconic shot.
Just so good. And then we'll handle this, and Darth Maul and the voice too, Peter Serafinowicz, because it wasn't
right.
I don't know why Ray Park was probably like, at last we will have our revenge, right? And they're like, no, we gotta revoice.
Like David Prowse in the Darth Vader suit.
But see, that just speaks to George has a particular vision of what he wants everything to look like and sound like.
Yeah. And he would take different like that's the other thing too. If you watch the documentary, its earliest days of Avid, there would be scenes on the ship where it would drive the editor nuts, because he'd be like, yeah, there's a scene on the Naboo starship where it's 4 different actors in it, and it's from 4 different takes. From each actor has a different take that you'd have to comp in, because he's like, well, I like this performance better, and it became really like crafting scenes piecemeal with little pieces together, like those old sticker sets that my daughter now has, where it kind of looks like matte, and you can put it on and it sticks.
Yeah.
It's like he would do that for scenes. He would be like, all right, I like the performance of
you see it in the documentary. He's coloring different highlighters and whatnot. Like this will be CGI. This will be practical. This will be this is a background. We gotta work this out. Blah blah blah. I want to talk about that documentary a little bit towards the end of our talk here, but because that's another. I think we've talked about this too. It's hugely influential in terms of how we view movies in general. But let's talk about just real quick how everything happens on Coruscant. This is the first time we see Coruscant.
Yeah,
which
it was from a novel. It was
exactly. Took it from Legends and put it in this movie, and I was absolutely just blown away by.
Well, actually, didn't Sean point out last week we saw it for the first time in the Return of the Jedi Special Edition?
We did.
And it's true.
It was an advertisement for the Phantom Menace, and you're kind of really excited to see that. And then the first time you saw the Jedi Temple, though, was not in Special Edition. Yeah. They added the Jedi Temple during the DVD releases. So just a little addendum to that, Mr. Sean.
Yeah, so, I mean, we go to the Senate, the Jedi Temple.
I am the Senate.
Yeah, what did you guys think of
the... Okay.
Not yet.
The Jedi Council, and then, of course... So for me, in college, like everybody had a
while
Pulp
the Congress
Fiction.
of the Republic endlessly debates the alarming chain of events. That's what Kevin didn't mean to interrupt, but it's on the TV.
Brian
Frank,
De Palma needed to
Frank,
get there.
Frank looped it in.
Everybody in college had a Pulp Fiction poster, so everybody loved Samuel L. Jackson. So like the response to him getting to be a Jedi, actually, you'd think it would have been negative. Like, why is he in it? But everybody was like, yeah, like, and we didn't know the color of his saber at the time.
The most charismatic actor in the world, and then he's in the movie, and he's like, no, he will not be trained.
Yeah. So
So
you
just
think
wooden.
first time though, when Anakin does the little squinty eyes at Mace, I'm like, oh man, their episode 3 duel is gonna be awesome, and it's gonna be inside the chamber, and then headcanon or head you're thinking of what it's gonna be, and Anakin's gonna slay him in the Jedi temple, and then like force push him out the window, and then that didn't happen.
Great trivia question for this movie would be: what is the order of objects that Mace Windu is testing Anakin on his little?
Wow.
Can I
A
try?
cup.
Can I try?
A ship,
Yeah.
a cup.
A cup, a ship,
Speeder?
a speeder, a cup.
Yeah.
I thought it was. See, like now you're messing me up because I was so confident in my head before I asked the question.
That was my. By the way, in Schmodown, I would answer questions even if I wasn't sure they were right. I would answer them as such they were right, and maybe it would just trick them, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's gotta be right."
I think he just goes like a ship, a cup, a speeder. Isn't it just?
He revisits one of the
You
first
think
3
he
again.
revisits
He
a
does,
cup?
and I couldn't remember if it was a ship or a cup again.
I don't know. What do you say, audience?
Why don't you
Tell
chime
us.
in the
Comments down below, and no cheating. We'll tell you if you got it right or wrong.
I remember looking and seeing Yaddle for the first time and being like, "Cool, there's another
Yaddle.
Yoda species." And also, now they did a great job of doing the CGI Yoda. But I remember when they
I
first
missed the
released the
puppet,
photo
man.
of the puppet, and it was released in a magazine, and everybody's like, "Look, it's young Yoda," and no one back then complained about it. They're like, "Oh, it looks like a young Yoda."
The puppet's pretty ugly, but I miss it.
I do. I'm bummed he went back and
yeah.
inserted.
Like,
I'm not
digital.
because I like everything to be kind of uniform.
I get it.
A ship,
A cup,
a cup,
a
ship.
ship.
Ah, the ships twice.
Ships twice,
A
and then a
speeder.
speeder.
And speeder. There we
Dun,
go.
dun, dun, dun. Your thoughts dwell on your mother. No, my thoughts dwell on your mother. Another great meme from that movie.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a good.
I
meme.
really do.
Yeah, Puppet Yoda. I prefer Puppet Yoda. That's just like I watched the DVD 1,000 times with Puppet Yoda.
Yeah.
So I'm always thrown off watching this on my Blu-ray or on Disney Plus. I am always so thrown off when CGI Yoda shows up, and the CGI is not as good as it is in Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. It's like a little like not as good, So it's like,
why didn't they? You think it would have been probably less budget?
I want to ask you then, because you prefer the digital Yoda, huh?
I do, and by the way, I prefer Puppet Yoda, and I'm so glad that Puppet Yoda they used the same mold from Empire for Last Jedi.
That's why I want to ask you. So, would you ever prefer digital Yoda in Last Jedi?
I mean, I'm crazy enough to where I'm like, dude, I'm glad George didn't do it, but I would have been all on board. Like, let's see a CGI Yoda throughout
There
all
would
the
have been
movies.
hell to pay.
Oh, of course, it would be horrible. But no, I was glad that they did the puppet because I guess when you get older in that species, whatever, we don't know the name of his species yet, but when you finally reach a certain age, when you're young, you are a puppet. And then you get to be 700 years old, and then you're CGI.
A Muppet.
Yeah, and then you become a Muppet again, and you know how they always say like you become a baby again. You're wearing diapers, and you're like as an old person, you're almost as useless as a baby, or I don't know, useless, but what the term is, same thing.
A useless life form.
Yeah, you're a puppet as a baby. My child. This first 6 months, I love my child to death, but the first 6 months, she was absolutely worthless. She was a puppet. She couldn't do anything but shit and eat and cry and.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, you do. We were all useless the first 6 months. Our head couldn't even keep up. Like you would break your neck if you didn't hold the head back. So
No, I was just tricking everybody. I could do it.
So I was glad they did the puppet in The Last Jedi.
like, yeah, lift my head, bitch. But no, I just feel like my brain is always super confused watching it with the CGI Yoda because like I'm expecting certain facial expressions to match up with the words, and they're different. If you watch the puppet version and then the CGI version, it's completely different facial expressions.
When you
mean
watch
one is
him,
vacant and kind of weird puppet like?
No, it's just that like when he's like
he says everything.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
One
From
part,
the trailer.
That emotion is not in there the way it is in the puppet.
The
puppet gives more emotion in the everything line.
When Yoda looks at Mace after and after Qui-Gon leaves, we leave in peace or whatever, or not leave in peace, but he leaves. Yoda does make a look to Samuel Jackson's mace, which is like you couldn't do that with the puppet, where he's just like like what's going on here with the kid?
True.
So there's certain give and take, but I agree that puppet reminded me of the trailer too. Remember that whole trailer?
Fear is the path to the dark side.
Another side story. The fear is the path. Say the quote again. Say that whole part.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
I edited
the
a show.
puppet for that.
Did I say this on the show yet or no? I edited a show called Marriage Boot Camp, and we do super teases and we do called promos for the season ahead. And I used to edit those, and I wouldn't write the video copy. I would just edit them. And one time, our main producer, the writer, was so frustrated with the network because before I can get the copy, which is basically the VO, which will be like, this season on Marriage Boot Camp, couples collide. Will they fall or will they come together or whatever? And finally, no joke, this aired. It made it to air. I look at the copy, and I'm like, because I did the VO too, or I did the temp VO before the VO artist did it, and I'm like, is this freaking for real? And I asked him, and he was like, he got so frustrated with the network for rewriting and saying, no, this doesn't work, that as a gag, he wrote, literally, it was like, this season on Marriage Boot Camp, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering for these couples or whatever. And I'm like, is that Yoda? Did you quote it? He's like, yeah, I literally, as a goof, wrote the Yoda speech. And I was like, this is brilliant. And so when it aired, I checked Twitter, and one eagle-eyed person heard it and was like, wait a second.
Holy shit.
That's Yoda from the Phantom Menace. But it never went, because it wasn't a big show anyway, but it never went viral.
I need to see this now, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I can ever dig that up. But yeah, it's literally like this season on Marriage Boot Camp. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. And hate leads to suffering. And then I show like a shot of the woman like,
oh my God, that's incredible.
And it aired. It made it.
That's
the network
funny.
liked it. That's how crazy and stupid networks are.
Maybe George was onto something. I don't know.
I guess it's well written.
It is. He could definitely write Yoda.
Yeah,
he could definitely write Yoda, no problem. When it
Scoundrels
comes to,
Inc.
When it comes to humans, he could write for Jar Jar. He could write for Yoda.
And by the way, good that Yoda was able to say that properly. You know, he didn't say like anger this leads to, and you know, he kept it straight for that one.
Sure.
Which I think we talked about in another episode. But in canon, Frank Oz said he spoke in reverse to honor his former master, who I guess spoke in reverse.
Right.
Which was, I guess, a custom of like samurai back in the day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch these scenes with the Jedi and Qui-Gon, I don't know, because you rewatched it, did your mind revert to Tales of the Jedi? When it's like Dooku and Yaddle, and it's just like, all this stuff is going on
the
right
moment,
now.
The moment I saw Yaddle on screen, I was just like,
Well, I watched it. So I watched it with my wife. You know, I'm doing that big rewatch,
Right.
which don't ask me how far I've gotten along.
How far are you?
Exactly the same place 3 years ago. Like it's and we'll get into it in Bad Batch. It was a struggle to get those episodes out. It's been really, you know, being a parent and now daycare and everything else and prepping for a move. But when I did show it with my wife, what was so cool is I was like, I'm gonna do it. My wife trusts me and trusts the process. Like
Trust the process.
Before No Way Home, like I showed her all the Spider-Man movies in a certain order, and she really appreciated No Way Home, right? So we watched Phantom Menace, and I figured out right when to stop it. I'm like, okay, hold on. And I stopped it, and I switched it right over because I had it on iTunes, and then I was able to swap it right over to Disney Plus, which is already queued. And then we kept playing. And let me tell you, when you intercut it with Tales of the Jedi, with what you're saying, with those Yaddle scenes, it's so great. And the biggest thing that it did was and I'm sure that's why it's not in Phantom Menace, because it's like you don't need to set up Dooku that early, but it set up Dooku so well for Dasha that she loved Attack of the Clones, and Dooku was way bigger of a player. When Dooku shows up, he's like, oh my God, there he is, because like she remembers.
It would definitely have a bigger impact. I can see that for like a first time.
I'm waiting for the Frank cut of the Phantom Menace. You said you'd do it. You promised me you'd do it.
Yeah,
it's my
where's the
birthday on
Frank
April
cut?
6th. April 6th is my birthday. I want that for my birthday.
All right, let's see what I can do.
I want an 8-hour Order 66 cut too.
I want that. I want that for Kevin's birthday.
I'm just gonna there's gonna be a whole movie just Order 66. Just do that.
I'm there for it.
Just
I
do
used
a
to
whole,
pause Order
give
66.
me a 2-hour movie of Order 66.
There was a long play of Episode 3, the game, with Order 66. It was 45 minutes of just some guy playing through the Order 66 level and killing everybody. I used to watch Episode 3 and then pause it and then go and watch the long play 45 minutes of him slaughtering people, killing Sindri. And then I go back, and then when he's like hugging and kissing Padme, and I'm like, those hands just slaughtered like 400 Jedi. Jedi in a video game. I just saw it.
God.
Yeah.
Recently saw like a behind the scenes video of them shooting like Order 66, the scenes from like Obi-Wan show.
Yeah.
And I saw like one of the Jedi had like a blue lightsaber and they were in front of a blue screen, and I was like, they had to rotoscope that person every single frame, because there's no way they keyed them out with that light up blue lightsaber emitting blue light, because nowadays they have the actual like lightsabers on set. So like emitting blue light on their clothes and everything.
Yeah, that's gotta be a nightmare.
I'm like, there's no.
By the way,
way.
they just said
That
T14 hyperdrive, and then there's TC14. What was his deal with T and 14? Also with 397. Wait, what's the docking in Empire Strikes Back on Bespin? He liked that number too. I don't know.
Anyways,
I'm retired.
So wrapping up this, we go back to Naboo with the Queen, and she recruits the Gungans, and Jar Jar plays a part. He gets promoted to Bombad General. Like, how the hell? You were about to
327.
banish this guy.
Platform 327. Sorry.
There you go. You're about to banish this guy. Also, real quick, I do like there was some
He crashed
actual
his boss's
practical
hay
shots
blibber.
of Jar Jar in very, very
There's a few.
scenes.
When he gets his hands stuck in the
That's
pod.
a practical.
Yeah, that is, huh?
When his foot is on the table when Padme talks to Anakin on the ship.
That's a real I didn't know that.
His feet are her actual practical.
Who owns those props right now?
I don't know.
Hanging
I think
out.
they're probably at the museum or something.
That's
I don't
gonna
know.
be your birthday present, guy. Yeah. I wanted the 8 hours.
Just one leg. Just give him a Jar Jar leg.
And I'm gonna put it in your bed with a bunch of blood in it. Jar Jar's head, like in Godfather.
Oh my God! Could you imagine? Anyways, no, you gotta go into the Opies. The Opies. And a pile of shit, and just
Now
at the foot of your bed.
they go back to this battle for the Battle of Naboo, and
Yeah.
I remember someone after Infinity War said the Infinity War battle reminded them of the Battle of Naboo, right? And a lot of people, because remember Infinity War happens with the ships land,
Sure.
and all the aliens come out.
shields.
And of course, people were saying it in such a negative a way about Phantom Menace, like this should have been how Phantom Menace would be. It's like no, like I thought it was cool when those droids
I liked
come
it,
and
yeah.
If the Gungans had Black Panther, that would have been over. In
you have to do droids, and we'll get into this in the next movie too. But like, because you can't do human death like on such a level. You see it with Andor, how disturbing it is when you see all these people getting killed. So brilliant move to do the droids. Droids versus.
And you can make the logic work of why you would use droids as opposed to
absolutely.
humans. So like it makes sense practically within the universe. It makes sense in terms of
Dark
displaying violence like that, where it's family friendly still, because you're still telling you're still making these stories for kids.
Yeah.
And so battle droids is one way to have a huge battle and not have blood and guts all over a battlefield. You know?
And if you think about it, like, because you're right, they were made for kids, and like all of the kids that grew up with Phantom Menace, right, are super big Star Wars fans now, and it happened because they got roped in with all the kid stuff.
Yeah. So, but I mean, look, the best part for me of going back to Naboo
Is the door slamming.
where Natalie Portman's foot slips. Remember, she's like, her foot slips off to the side.
No.
Yeah, dude.
What?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah, it's
When they're
like
shooting up the thing when they're
there's that too. But when
Ascension guns.
Wait, did someone get hurt?
They're all
in that?
Batman all of a sudden.
I always mix that up. In Back to the Future 2, someone broke when they crashed.
Yeah, she
through the
broke
window.
her hip or something
Broke her
like
hip.
that,
But in Phantom Menace, isn't something going on in that part too?
one of the one pulley was like slower than the rest of the
okay.
group, and so in the,
wait up, guys.
so then in the next shot you see it speed up to catch up.
Okay.
George Lucas was like, would it be cool if they were just all Batman for like 30 seconds?
Yeah, how strong? Like the queen, right? This queen that you say so pacifist. She has that gun, like what, and like what? And then they all can just. You know how hard it is to hang on a little wire and get shot up like that. Like the amount of
I
muscle.
don't know when have you done it?
Look at my body, dude.
How badass was like Sabe though, when she just like shows up out of nowhere with like a whole other group, like Viceroy, your occupation here has ended.
Yeah, she
should have been the queen.
From the streets of
Yeah.
Naboo.
Sabe's from the streets.
And let's talk about
if
Sabe
she was
real
the
quick.
real queen, they would never have made it even to land.
Sabe launches her career, Keira Knightley, right? Launches
Yeah.
her career. She does Pirates after that and all of that. And what's cool thing about Sabe is if you read the comics,
It's funny that someone's career can launch like, hey, you're gonna be Natalie Portman's double.
and now you launch.
You're here because you look a lot like Natalie Portman.
Yeah. It's crazy. But the character, if you read the comics, Vader in his first couple of years of being Vader, I think it's the first couple of years. Forgive me if I don't know the exact timing, but he ends up like thinking he's seen Padme, like he's seen a ghost, but it's Sabe. Sabe's alive and part of some resistance thing, and teams up with Vader to meet mutual ends. And I'm kind of curious. I'm looking forward when I go through that rewatch. That's on the list, so I'm curious how that shakes down. But Sabe is a big player later on in canon, because if you're considering the comics canon,
there
Was she like, hey, aren't you that little kid who kept complaining that he was cold that one time?
But
you're right. Badass move. She's like, hey, your occupation. And she also does a one-liner like Arnold. You could see her on. Do you have an Arnold? You could do Arnold would say that your occupation is ended.
Your occupation here is ended.
Exactly. Pow, pow, pow. And then he like runs off. And it's
now
also
we will
kind of,
discuss a new treaty.
But it also it's kind of funny how she's like, pow, pow, pow. And then she's like, okay. And then like runs.
But, okay, look. Darth Maul. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Qui Gon Jinn, Duel of Fates. Everyone's, I think, who's probably watching this has heard Dave Filoni's telling of how this Duel of Fates is for the duel of Anakin's soul. You know,
I played that for Dasha before the right after the duel.
Yeah,
I played that video for her because I really wanted her. She loved Obi-Wan, the show, and that got her into Star Wars. So props for the Obi-Wan show for that, for all of its misgivings or people not liking it. And I played for her that video, and it really enhances that. That's why I think that Filoni is the man to be in charge of Star Wars, hopefully, because he really does understand that level of how deep things can go. And it's a duel of the fates because it's the fate of this boy.
But I mean, like, certainly as a kid watching this, I just was enthralled by the spectacle of it all, the combat, you know, the precision. The aerial, acrobatics by Darth Maul, and just the whole scope of the fight. You know, you going into this type of, I don't know, was it like a reactor? I forget what the exact
multiple locations.
And
that little thing too. My favorite shot of that whole trailer, fight, and I stole these effects too because they were really good sound design. Remember when they're going into and it's a low angle, and Qui-Gon and Maul are fighting, and they pass by the camera. The camera's like low angle, and they're like right over it, and you just hear, and the bass of like, you could hear the bass of those saber hits. Some of the best sound design.
It is such a cool fight that I didn't really realize how much meaning it had to the overall story until I heard that Dave explanation. I was like, damn, dude, you blew my mind. And it's just like, man, I've given so much credit to that fight, but for a different reason as opposed to a deeper meaning, which I think is fine if you look at it as like a spectacle and just an incredible fight sequence. But when you look at the actual meaning behind that fight, it really does enhance this movie overall and Anakin's story in general as well. But I just thought it was the coolest thing. It still is one of the coolest things in Star Wars, bar none. I tweeted this the other day about my favorite sequence of this fight is between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul after Qui-Gon has died. And it's just him coming around the corner. He does like this little hop and just starts wailing at Maul, and Maul's, reciprocating, and it's just, they're just going at it. And when you watch behind the documentary of them rehearsing and just how hard they're going, and you see their bent props, just how hard they were going.
Imagine how it feels on the fingers when they miss, and that just
which happened, which they talked about in that too. I don't know, Brandon, talk about this duel of the fates.
I really like it.
There we go.
Another funny thing that I was thinking about when my mind plays tricks on me watching this movie, because I watched this so many times as a kid, like watching it on VHS. I'd watch it on like this like little like tube TV, right? Obviously like the screen is curved, so like when like Maul would ignite his lightsaber, and then like Anakin and Qui-Gon would like go like that with theirs. The lightsaber is always kind of like curved a little bit because they curved with like the curvature of like the glass TV screen. And so now whenever I watch this movie, I'm like expecting the lightsabers to be curved.
Interesting.
And they're straight now. And I'm just like, my brain is always like fixated on that every time I watch it. I mean, it's like one of the coolest lightsaber fight sequences in all Star Wars. Maul doing that like little like jump that he does, and then he like throws that one thing at the door to open it and spins his lightsaber.
I mean, he's first of all, just an insane
crazy
combat. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's just awesome.
So let's stop having a badass young Zabrak and let's go with a 72-year-old man for the next movie.
Dang. But I mean, it's Christopher
There's
Lee
all
though.
moment.
Like he's an icon.
Which,
You know,
vampire, dude.
Exactly. Dracula and Count Dooku. Like, come on, man.
Saruman.
Right.
Darth Saruman.
Yeah, no, it's just I don't know. It's just
I
just
would-
a good time, man.
I need to find a screen.
When him and Obi-Wan fight one-on-one and they're like swinging their lightsabers really fast.
Yeah, dude.
I always
And
like
I remember
that.
I could like do.
I love the
throw
moment
around.
when he go that like sound effect when like he like blocks like the lightsaber in the back.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then the front like immediately it's like.
My favorite sound effect of that scene is the force push when he.
Oh yeah.
And I guess ISO'd that, so whenever I have force,
Like I just like
yeah, you could hear it in your head.
I will
We're
say
giant nerds.
you can hear the
Yeah.
lightsaber
hear
fight. Like just the lightsaber sounds in your head. Like
I
the
will. I
timing.
will say I learned the choreography of Obi-Wan's part and Darth Maul's part in that salvo.
I did too.
I learned, and I had no one to do it with. I learned both parts.
We could have been
and we
best
could've-
friends,
we
dude.
ran-
And I'm telling you what, those kids aren't stealing your bike with me and a lightsaber, dude. I learned it with my buddy, in the because we had again. That's back when my frat days. We had a dance called Captain Morgan's Rage, and basically it was just our big party of the year. But we always had like a quick like skit at the beginning of the party. It was like a 2-day party. It was really fun. And me and my buddy dressed as pirates it was part of the pirate theme, but we learned the Obi-Wan and Anakin Obi-Wan and Maul, that thing that you learned.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the dun, dun, and the twirl. And so
Because I had the double-bladed saber.
yeah, people were like, why does that one pirate have a double-bladed sword? That doesn't make any sense, but we did it.
Damn. Kevin, watching this in the theater for the first time that night. Do you remember watching this?
No, again, the rest of it is such a because you're so overwhelmed. That's why, if you notice, my memories are of like basically the first 20 minutes. I don't remember too much more other than like being really bummed when Qui-Gon died.
Yeah.
And and I'm not to jump ahead, but a huge laugh was, I'll be watching your career with great interest.
Yeah,
that got one of those like I know what that is.
I get it.
But yeah, the fight is just so well done, and I like it. You didn't need talking. Like that's why Maul was there. He's not there trying to turn you to the dark side, which is why we get when Revenge of the Sith. Why I wish there was a little more talking from that, like to show a little bit more of a
Because there's no personal connection there. There's none of that.
He's just this stone cold, crazy ass killer.
He's an
Sith.
assassin,
Yeah.
and so he's sent there to do. And I just love it.
50% batting average, not bad.
Right? I mean,
And by the way,
better than Qui.
Sith Lords are our speciality. Yeah, bro, you only killed one. Relax.
Also, I mean, and then he did get a little bit wrecked by Count
Yeah,
Dooku.
Count Dooku,
Actually,
the
got
last
wrecked by
time
Dooku twice.
Yeah, you did. That's right.
In Attack of the Clones, and then in that fight, the opening fight in Revenge of the Sith.
And not the countless times probably in Clone Wars. So by the time he gets to Revenge of the Sith, that's like me like striking out like 500 times, and then I get like one single, and then I'm resting my laurels on that single. I'm like, oh, singles are my specialty. That's baseball.
But look.
reference.
So I think you talked about Palpatine's line to Anakin and whatnot, and the foreshadowing there is just like, oh, okay. The what this movie, in terms of what it meant for my overall, how I look at movies, how I view movies, and what it did to my overall, I guess, fandom for cinema, all really started with this movie. By watching that behind the scenes documentary, the making of documentary that was on the DVD. I watched it so many times. Because not only was I just enamored of how they actually make Star Wars, but you just learn so much about filmmaking in general. It really just got me invested into movies. It's so much so that at one point when I was in high school, I was like, I want to go to film school, but then I realized I came from a probably lower middle class family that I was like, how am I ever going to afford film school? So I was like, that'll never happen. But that shouldn't have happened. But things work out for the best, anyways. So, but what I say that to say that had such an impact on me that I wanted. That was my mindset at one point because of this movie. And I know Brandon, you've had a similar take. because of the documentary.
Yeah, just like watching like the behind the scenes, like choreography and lightsaber fights, it made me like want to like get into filmmaking. And also like I not really gotten into filmmaking, but like at the time, you know, like it just like kind of fueled my love for movies, you know. And like I was like, oh, maybe like I want to be like a stunt choreographer, and like, you know, because then like obviously like other movies you could like do like fight sequences, things like that, but like maybe there is an off chance one day I can do a Star Wars movie and I'll get to play with lightsabers.
And then
as
you
an
ended
adult.
up on a movie trivia show.
And then I ended up going, oh, buzz droids.
You know, that story is very similar to a lot of filmmakers like Favreau, like the original trilogy did what you're saying, like almost verbatim. It inspired them as young kids. So that's cool that this movie did that for you. I was already in film school at the time. So by the way, he says my tongue is fat. My tongue is fat. And
my tongue is fat.
That's
right. I always thought he said numb. It's fat.
But
he says fat.
The being in
Not
film
numb.
school and watching those behind the scenes was really great. And I remember storyboarding my Syndicate movie, which stole from Attack of the Clones. And when we would storyboard that movie, we had a loop. We would watch Empire because it took forever to storyboard that movie. So we had Empire, and then we would have the behind the scenes of Phantom Menace. So
I mean,
school it.
Great
It's
stuff.
It's a great doc. It's called The Beginning, right?
Yes.
And then it ends with the piece of paper with the episode 2.
Yeah.
And it's blank, and
And
you
I
just
was-
want to be like, just don't talk about sand.
Oh man, if you don't have the DVD, the documentary is on YouTube somewhere. You can watch it. I wish I still had my DVD. I don't know where it's at.
Props to Ahmed Johnson too, who
Or I think it's on the Blu-ray too. So
he dealt with a lot of crap.
Ahmed Best.
Ahmed Best,
Ahmed Johnson is a wrestler from the WWE, really buff dude. Google Ahmed Johnson; he's bigger than like Drax the Destroyer. It's crazy. But Ahmed Best, like dealing with all of that, and he was able to like he dealt with it. It was really hard on him too, and he kind of persevered through that. I think he has like a one-man show and stuff like that. But the one thing we forgot before you wrap is, do you think? And I know that I talked with you guys this before air. Is do you think that Anakin still had that? We never see the thing get taken out of him, his little bomber tractor, right? So I was talking with the fellas, and I was telling Brandon, I'm like, yeah, like you think about it, like if he doesn't have that tracker, like if anyone knew that Anakin was the little kid, they could have stopped him right in his tracks. And you were mentioning that Watto could have saved the galaxy.
Yeah, could you imagine like even after like he gets in the suit and everything, he's full on Vader. He still has like just like a little bomb in his neck. He never found it, never got it removed. And he just like comes to Tatooine, and Watto's just like, honey, little honey, it is you, a Sith. What do you know? And blows his head off.
How was that not in how it should have ended? Yeah, that cracked me up. It was way better when we were talking about it off air, but yeah. I mean, not to say that your performance was great, but just the lead into it.
But
we forgot it.
Yeah, there was like a meme that I saw once where it was like, you've seen a bunch of these memes when it's like Watto and he's like old, he's like in a retirement home, and he's just like, Darth Vader was once my slave. And he's like, sure, Watto, let's get you to bed.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah. Overall thoughts, thumbs up.
Oh, totally. I mean, but look, I think there was a point in time where I think I was a little down on the movie.
I
Like
think everybody was.
and then I think because I don't know, but for you guys, after a certain amount of, I don't know how well, I think when I was in college, after Revenge of the Sith came out, I was like, that's kind of it for Star Wars. And so like kind of like my fandom for Star Wars dipped, and then like Clone Wars came out, was starting to come out, and I was like, oh, this really isn't for me. Basically on that first season, I tried to watch, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. And then so it kind of overall just had like, episode 1's a really kiddie movie, and so I went through this phase where I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to Star Wars, and then things started. I don't know when it really turned around. I think actually when I started working with the Schmodown, honestly, is when kind of like my Star Wars fandom started coming back, and that's when Force Awakens was coming back.
This guy knows his Star Wars too. We were back in the early days of Schmodown Star Wars before it got crazy. Like I remember we would like quiz each other, and I was like, man, you could make a run for the Star Wars belt, and it was legit. You probably could have.
I think I could have.
First couple seasons anyway.
Well, I mean, if I wasn't doing the rundown and all the other stuff I was doing, if I could dedicate all the time to Star Wars the way other players did, I think I could have for sure.
You would have definitely made a
Captain
run.
Nita for sure.
But what was I getting at? What was I getting?
This you're.
But just the way I
reignited
view this
love.
movie now is just I love it to pieces. It's not my favorite prequel movie. That belongs to Revenge of the Sith, and I think that does for a lot of people. But I really, really enjoy this movie from start to finish, even with all its bloatedness and Jar Jar Binks and Watto and all the other types of stereotype problems it has with, Newt Gunray and all them. But it is what it is. But at the end of the day, I do love that this is Anakin's origin story. I do like that, we're introduced to Padme and Obi-Wan and characters like Qui Gon. So over time, I've grown even more fond of this movie.
Yeah, it bumps me out when you see fan edits where they're like, "Oh, I just did a episode 2 and 3 combo movie, and episode 1's in the crawl." Like, or I just make a prologue out of it. Like, I get it. You could have started episode 2 as one, and then done a long Clone Wars movie like Apocalypse Now. I always say I want an Apocalypse Now Clone Wars movie, and then episode 3. But the way it is,
when you
gotta respect the Phantom Menace for the chances it made, the chances it took. Bold choices, not making it a carbon copy, and I'm not talking smack on The Force Awakens because I like that The Force Awakens kind of has some of that symmetry, but that it's just so different than the other movies, and it does feel like that's a prequel era movie, and there's the vibe and the feeling and the music. Captain Tamanaka and that track is a great track too, and the rescue. I forget Captain Tamanaka and the Rescuers or whatever. But my overall thoughts, if we're wrapping it up, is that I appreciate it for what it is. I still laugh when I was sending you those clips from someone did one where they revoiced Jar Jar as like a sassy Australian, which is funny in its own right, and totally like makes the movie feel totally different and makes Jar Jar more like a Han Solo vibe. But like instead of he talks about he's not banished for being clumsy. It's rewritten where he was like, "Oh, I was banished because I slept with the boss Nass's wife." Like, and it's really well done. He somehow matches the lips so well. I wish I knew the name of it. If anybody is really wanting and itching for it, post in the Discord. I'll try to find it and I'll post it there. But overall, I like it. I respect the choices it made. I remember I didn't like it as much back. Like it was like progressive. Like, oh, I like Attack of the Clones better, and now I like Revenge of the Sith better.
Oh yeah.
Now
totally.
I think my order of prequels is Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, and then Attack of the Clones. So
yeah, I think I would agree with that as well for myself. Brandon?
Yeah, I think my closing statements is actually one last theory about this movie.
Mao Hanek.
Sorry, I just see in this movie, we see Palpatine presenting a hologram to the Queen of Naboo, like saying, "What are the Chancellor's ambassadors?" And then immediately he has to switch his outfit out, put on his dark side robe, and then go do a hologram call with the Nemoidians. And he's like switching back and forth between outfits, calling different people, like all within like the same hour. So like how
very talented.
How did he get away with that? I have to think that there is an IT guy out there going like, like this call from Palpatine to the Queen of Naboo and this call from Sidious to the Nemoidians has come from the same IP address.
Space AT&T is onto them.
Like the IT guy had to know who Palpatine was.
Well, I'll tell you what. Back in that days,
he would have had to VPN in from a different thing.
I thought in between 1 and 2, and even between 2 and 3, up until then, I thought that maybe Palpatine. It would have been an interesting twist because you're always expecting a twist in the second movie. I was expecting halfway through episode 2 that Palpatine, evil Palpatine, would kill good guy Palpatine, that you realize that he was a clone or he had whatever it was, that you're like, oh my god, they aren't the same person, because that everybody was like, man, he's even named the same, like there's no hiding that, right? And I was like, well, it'd be interesting if like he was cloned or there was some crazy theories out where it's like, no, the Palpatine, this is back in the day, like I said, with these 3-year waits, you're like, no, I like the discussions would be like, no, I think that this Palpatine is actually like good and is genuine, and then it, obviously by episode 2 you realize, okay, that theory's out the door. But
I will also say, lastly, this was probably the only movie, out of the prequels especially, where I really went all out collecting the action figures. I like all those action figures had like the comm links, where it has like the little sound clips, sound bites. When you had like that, what's the communication device that they, I forget, the comm link. Right, the comm chips. Yeah, the comm link, and the chips, and then you could actually stand the figures on that chip, and then you could play like on their comm link, and you could hear like just lines that they say in the movie. I had the final like play set thing of like the Naboo on Naboo with whatever the walkways and all that stuff, you know, it's like you hit this little rotation thing where you can like go back and forth. I also had the Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, and Qui Gon. They were like bigger toys or like figures, whatever, but you would sync them up and they would you would like hit a button and they would fight like on their own and like clash and whatnot. And they were Qui-Gon was on one side and Obi-Wan's on the other side, obviously, and Maul in the middle. And you hit this button. It was all timed where when they would move, they would clash their sabers and stuff. It was really cool.
Did I have that Obi-Wan? I might have.
You might have.
I recently bought a Qui-Gon toy at Star Wars Celebration where he's making this face.
Yeah.
Remember that, Frank?
I'm gonna post that on our Instagram. So Scoundrels Inc. on Instagram.
That face you made should be
Go
his
check it out.
thumbnail.
Yeah.
That's the face
And I
the
think
toy
at
makes.
one point I did this scroll. At one point I did that. You could have a weird wacky time with this.
I got it for a great deal. So,
But I mean, Kevin, you didn't really delve into the action figures at this point, did you?
No, I was a frat guy. I was definitely San Diego State frat guy. But like it was funny because my friends even knew it. Like there was like, you were frat guy. Like I was really like, and I wasn't like a jerk frat guy or anything like that. But like I was into like the girls and the partying. But like they were always like so funny though, because like then behind closed doors you're probably watching that trailer 50 times too. And I'm like yeah, like I was still like the first time seeing the trailer, getting the goosebumps and geeking out about stuff. But I would always be able to separate it and be like, all right, now I'm going to put on my shiny shirt and my spiky hair and get out and party. But meanwhile, my friends would joke. They'd be like, yeah, I see these old photos of you in college. But like, we know deep down inside, you're like, I can't wait to get home and watch, the Phantom Menace trailer.
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up here for our episode 1, the Phantom Menace discussion, conversation, what have you. Again, we've done the original trilogy, so if you want to go back and watch
Palpatine
and
327 again. 327.
If you want to go back and watch those, go ahead. Or depending on when you're watching this, we may have completed the entire saga by now. So if you want to revisit those, there's playlists and whatnot on the podcast.
Maybe you're watching this in the future. How's Ahsoka, by the way?
Is it awesome? Did she do the thing that we thought she might do?
Are we going to ever do commentaries?
We might, yeah. I think at some point we'll figure that out.
Only money.
I'm really looking forward to next week. We're talking about
No
Attack of the
money,
Clones.
no commentary,
Oh, yeah.
no deal.
We got Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith coming up. Prequels are going to be a lot of fun to talk about.
Attack of the Clones and Bad Batch I got to talk about next week. Oh, man, I'm starting to feel sick, bro.
Okay, that's typical. Typical. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.
Scoundrel. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.